Hey, Blake. I think you might have been talking, but I can't hear you. Can you hear me? We are live already, Bobo.
Good morning.
Hey,
Morning.
good morning.
Morning.
We'll turn our camera on when you turn yours on.
You're figuring things out. Look at you.
Are we live right now?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
I started a little bit early this morning.
That's okay.
No worries.
Stand by.
Mhm.
Big news. I have some important news for you. Interesting news.
It's Blake and Darren's Spilling the Tea with Sandy.
Cayman's top news headlines of the day from CMR.
Good morning, Sandy. How are you?
Hey, Blake, Aaron. How are you guys doing?
We
Good. How are you?
good.
Everybody's good. All right. Awesome.
We are.
Still sending out my video links. I see Blake has been playing around with a few things in the studio.
Mhm. What you got for us this morning?
Good morning. So, a bit of breaking news. Yesterday morning, right during the show, we found out that the deputy governor, Mr. France Manderson, had had some sort of a cardiac situation,
Mm.
and our sources say, drove himself to the hospital,
Oh,
Whoa.
really?
and got it all sorted out. So, thankfully, not as bad as it could have been. He had a procedure. I think a stent was put in, and he was home by afternoon.
All
Is what
right.
we
Great.
understand. So yeah,
Crazy.
really happy for
Drove
him.
himself,
And
though. Whoa.
sorry.
If he drove himself, whoa.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he recognized that something was going on, and that he needed immediate medical attention. So we are wishing him a speedy recovery.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these things happen, but thanks to modern medicine, I feel like we all are in a much better position these days.
Yep.
Mhm. All right. So,
sure.
In other news, obviously the situation with the Cuban migrants continues to just be. Um, I don't even know what to say about it, but it just is like every other day we're getting more and more people in, and the government seems a little bit pressed as to how they're going to resolve the issue. Of course, people feel very strongly about this one way or the other. I feel like we're going to be discussing it a little bit this morning. But the government's position is it's not quite as straightforward as people think, because they do have the right to apply for political asylum. And normally, even if that's a stalling tactic, it can literally stall it for a substantial amount of time. And that is one of the reasons why they're not removed as quickly from the jurisdiction. But in the meantime, the U.S. has been taking a very interesting approach. So we're going to talk about some of the details of that this morning as well. So we'll see. There's been a couple things that have developed in regard to that. Sports news. This isn't something we really talk about often on this program, sports news. But hey, the Cayman Islands Classic NCAA Division One basketball tournament is back. It's going to be held at the John Gray Gymnasium from November the 21st through the 23rd. So check out the event. Their website is CaymanIslandsClassic.com. And you can get tickets to support this event at eventpro.ky. So,
Cool.
do check it out. There's lots of things, everybody's kind of coming back fully with like events now post COVID. And so even Gimme Stories on this year as well. So that's coming up starting on the 25th. So make sure you guys check that out. Also, that's a free event, 6 nights of entertainment and storytelling. And this year they're doing something a little bit different since it's their first year coming back post COVID. The entire storytelling cast or lineup of individuals is going to be Caymanians only. So, they're really encouraging Caymanians to demonstrate their artistic capabilities and their storytelling. And some are going to be traveling from overseas, like Rita Eskavanovich, King Navasa. They're going to be coming back home in order to participate in this year's Gimme Story. So I think everybody should participate. It's obviously going to be a really, really good one.
Cool.
Very nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we were looking for the NRA to come on this morning, but unfortunately they're going to have to reschedule. So
Are they stuck in traffic? Just kidding. Not really.
No.
No.
Um,
Come on.
so people will have to that's a good one, Aaron, I must say.
Yeah.
People are going to have to wait a little bit longer to hear from them. Lots of questions coming in, obviously, about the expansion, the new bypass that's supposed to be going through, the expansion to Woodland, the Woodland Street. Is it Woodland Street? Yes. The Woodland Street area, which brings it into Lower Valley. And then obviously it's going to go further from there. Where they are with the environmental impact assessment, I understand that a tender has gone out. So we were really looking forward to getting all of those additional details from them. So we'll have to wait a little bit longer. All right. Community announcement. Those of you who live in the Newland, Savannah area or anywhere else for that matter, and you have been using the end of the east-west arterial bypass as your dumping ground for bulk waste, please note that is not where it's supposed to go.
They always do that. I feel like
Yeah, and I don't know why.
right? Like when you go at the end on your way to turn to countryside.
I thought
right?
that was like a thing.
No, it's not supposed to be a thing, but people are
thing.
creating it as a thing. So that is not the location for dumping any waste at all, much less bulk waste. But every single year, people keep doing it. And so the Department of Environmental Health has put up, the caution tape. They need to put up a sign. I don't know if a sign's there that says no dumping and a camera.
They do need a camera.
Doing it.
Yeah.
And, even the Savannah MP, Miss Heather Bodden, has had to post something in her social media saying it's not a dumping ground. Right now, the government is doing bulk waste collection, but you're supposed to put it to the curbside of your own house. You don't take it and put it on a public road, which is a complete eyesore to everyone. I mean,
listen, I was at Collier's Beach. This was years ago. And I see this truck just roll up with a bunch of like old furniture, obviously.
Oh my God.
Out of house. Just dumped it right there on the beach, right by where a bunch of people were hanging out at Collier's. So I obviously alerted the police. And then, and they figured out who owned the truck. And they're like, if you don't get it, I think they didn't do anything to the person. They just said, if you don't get it, we will do something. But he came back and all of a sudden he's loading up everything back in the truck. But I'm like, don't.
Who does that? Yeah. I'm going to tell a similar story this morning about someone who parked in a handicapped spot. When you're doing the right thing, people try to make you feel like you're the bad person. You're like, okay, you can't dump here. Yeah. And I'm sure he had an attitude about it, like, oh, who called the police on me or whatever. It's just so ridiculous. It was pretty
obvious. I was kind of
I don't understand the thought process of littering and, on your, in this beautiful island.
Just littering in general. I don't understand the process.
It's just people just don't care about the environment. So it's really sad. But please,
taking pride in your stuff, taking pride in where you live.
Exactly. And so, the government every year does the annual bulk collection service, which I think is great because there's a lot of countries that doesn't happen.
Well, it's easy too. You can just go to the dump and put it where it belongs.
I mean, some people don't have
Well, the guy with the truck could just try.
Well, that guy could have drove to the truck, but
anybody that's
all the way out in Easton,
taking
too
stuff
far
to the east-west arterial can just drive to the dump.
I know that was ridiculous. It was like he probably was doing a job, and instead of going to the dump meant to, just went to the easiest place so he could get home.
But we digress.
Yeah.
Yes. Sandy, headlines this morning?
Yes. One quick one. Financial Minister Andre Ebanks addressed tax. it's a bad 3-letter word. Tax matters before the EU Parliament. This is the first time that this has happened. So good for him, talking about tax matters globally and specifically with the EU, which of course that we're still on the gray list. And we're working hard to try to get off of it.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. You guys have a fantastic day.
Catch Sandy Show right now on Bobo 89.1 FM. We'll see you tomorrow for the Friday headlines.
All right, guys.
I know. Have a good one. Our segment.
All right, folks. Good morning and welcome to the program. I'm going to talk about a few things this morning, but let's go ahead and do our formal introductions. Everybody's good?
Peppermint, sorrel, ginger, beaver grass, or English. Get it ready. Your morning tea just got hotter.
Ooh, honey child.
On the cold, hard truth. Bobo 89.1 and Cayman's #1 talk show are bringing you morning talk like no one else. Monday Rewind, Impact Wednesdays, Caribbean Connections, and much more. Don't miss a beat with what's happening in the local community. Just keep sipping your tea.
What a mess.
Here's your host, live and direct from the Cayman Islands, Sandy Hill.
All right. Good morning, beautiful folks. How are you guys doing? Happy Thursday. Can't believe it. This week has just flown by. It always happens when it's a short week. It seems extra short. So lots of interesting messages coming in, obviously from yesterday's program, which took an unexpected turn. I don't know what to say, except that, on this program, you just never know what's going to be coming your way. So we get things just landing in our lap in terms of show content. And it's quite interesting, to be quite honest, because a lot of times I do my best to guide people and they still don't listen. Wow. Anyway, now, of course, once it's on our radar, y'all know we're going to be digging for the truth. After all, it is a cold, hard truth around here. And so we are going to be looking into all of it. I'm just setting up a little device over here. That's why I'm looking to my right this morning, looking at the TV. So I got my, what do we call it? My moisturizer, because I noticed that my skin has been a little bit extra dry. It is raining this morning in the beautiful district of Savannah. We're being blessed with some nice, beautiful showers at Savannah, Newlands. Let's go ahead and check in with you guys and see how you're doing. Miss Morna, are you on the live yet this morning? I needed to ask you how your tablets. Remember, I got Miss Morna one of these little things, and I wanted to see how she was doing with it. They're awesome. They're so thick and really moisturizes your face with like vitamin E and aloe and stuff. Keep your skin looking nice and fresh and properly moisturized. I have very dry skin, so I feel like I'm always having to go the extra mile to be moist. The rest of my body actually use oil. Like when I get in the shower, I use shower oil. I do have a shower oil that you use in the shower, but even if I use that, I feel like I still have to, on top of that, put on some shower oil. So the police, or post-shower oil, I should say. The police are having a press conference this morning at 11 o'clock. We will be in attendance and we will be live streaming it. They're going to be talking about the recent robberies. And I don't know if they have a solution for us, or they're going to be telling us exactly what it is that they're doing. But I fancy it's just going to be, oh yeah, we're working on it. If you know any tips, call us. That's what I think is going to be going on, but we'll see. So press conference, we continue to encourage them to come on the program because I know that you guys would love to be able to ask questions of them. They seem to be extremely media shy for whatever reason. Well, on this particular platform, despite the premier, the governor, all these people saying, we'll encourage them to come on, they still have not made that happen. They did traffic. They did a couple of traffic officers. But we want more than traffic. We want the big boys, the, what do they call them? The brassy ones, the big brass or whatever they're called, right? So in other words, the commissioner. So I had occasion to email the commissioner yesterday. I got to tell you all this story because this is kind of on the wild side of being a parent, right? Honey child, as a parent, as a person in this community who cares about this community, cares about law-abiding citizens, and we all need to be law-abiding. I can't sit here and say that the gangsters need to be law-abiding, and then the little rich ladies driving around in the Mercedes SUVs playing tennis in the morning and picking up the kids, that they don't have to be law-abiding. You know what I mean? The law is for everybody to follow, and we all have to toe the line. That's how that's how a good society works. If it was lawless, we'd all be out there doing whatever we wanted to. So good morning to Miss Vernita. Top of the morning to Louis. I haven't seen you in a minute. He says, enough love. It's currently 28 degrees Fahrenheit with a high today of 37. Light snow forecasted. And you're in Detroit, Michigan. Yes, Louis. Wow, we've not seen you in a minute. And already it's like Christmas weather. What? Marshall is here. Marshall, what's the weather like in your neck of the woods? Good morning to Miss June. We've got Wee Wee. Evelyn, how was the birthday? She says, pleasant good morning to everyone. Miss Ethel is also joining us. She says, top of the morning to you too, Louis. Long time. Pray that all is well. We're like a little community here of the people who comment. I know many, many more people are listening. But the people who comment every single morning, they're part of like the little inner CMR family. And I'm going to show you guys a little bit later on something that Facebook is doing new, where they send me a little report telling me they're giving points. And I don't know what the points are for, to be honest. Facebook does the most sometimes, and I don't even know what they're doing, but they're doing some kind of point system. But they do tell you who like your top engagers are. So the people who like and comment the most. No surprise, is Cameron in the house? Cameron is like in the #1 spot, and I'm so not surprised by that, because I swear Cameron comments on every single post multiple times, and it is just what it is. So yes, so Cameron is #1, and then we had Damien in for probably a close second. Jonathan, that's because they are all on the morning show. Alejandro also. Miss Ramelia, she's in the top fan club. Good for you. Miss Marjorie. Now, Miss Marjorie Bancroft, she doesn't really comment that often, but she must be doing different types of interacting. So I thought that was pretty interesting. We've got Amanda Chi. No clue who Amanda is, but congratulations, Amanda. Says here in her profile that she's a former RCIPS officer. El Ray, who works at Flow. I'm not surprised by that. Senior Implementation Specialist. That one sounds pretty technical. At Flow, we've got Berman Scott, who lives in Savannah. I think Berman is originally from Cayman Brac, right? So he's got some Brac connections. And then we have Jack Jones, who lives in Miami Beach, Florida. So quite an interesting, bit of just a collection of really super interesting people who got in the top engagers club. And like I said, they're actually doing like a point system now, but I don't know what the purpose of the points is. I'm like, oh, do you get like 1,000 points and then Facebook is going to give you something for free? I doubt it. But there you go. All right. So good morning to Miss Bonnie, part of the CMR family, joining us from East End. Miss Ethel says loads of rain here on my end as well in West Bay. So does that mean we have rain island wide? From the west to the east and the east to the west. Good morning, Miss Olivia. Nathina says it's also raining in town. All right. Miss Bonnie, how about East End? Give us an update on the East End weather. Nathina says, I'm listening to you on the radio too. You sound really nice over the radio. Aw, thank you. I'm going to talk about that in a second, Nathina. You just made me think of something. All right. So John Henry is in the house. He says, good morning, CMR fam. Irvelyn says birthday was off the chain. Irvelyn just knows how to have a good time, y'all. Marshall confirms that it's now 35 degrees with a high of 53. And North Carolina, getting chilly, y'all. Snow is starting. Chicago, that whole area, New York, y'all are going to start to get some weather. So Cameron, top engager, says Nor'wester season now. I'd love to see some snow right about now. Well, I don't think you're going to see snow here in the tropics. But go to North Carolina, Detroit, New York, and you'll catch some. Anything is possible in Cayman these days, says Cameron. Almost anything. Richard, good morning to you. Celine and Richard are both watching. They're tuned into the show. Miss Bonnie says, I had a very good shower this morning of rain as well. And Lavana is in the house. So beautiful people. Good morning to one and good morning to all. And of course, good morning to all of our Bobo listeners. You guys can send a little message. You can send your little morning greeting via, SMS or WhatsApp or whatever. Bobo is 936. Bobo is a telephone number. That's 936-2626. Miss Maria is nice. She says, so nice to hear the rain. It is. I love rainy weather, actually. For me, it's like if I can stay inside, oh, God, I love me a rainy day. It's just something about rain that just makes my heart warm. And then you can have like a nice cup of soup or some nice hot chocolate or something to just cozy up, watch a good Netflix series or something. Miss Anne Marie is also in the house. She says, good morning, Sandy and CMR fans. It's raining here in High Rock. So there we go. Confirmation that the entire island is getting some beautiful morning showers. How incredibly blessed are we? Dean is here, says, good morning, Sandy and all. Godspeed. Good morning to Paul. Spending your last day. So you were here on island, Paul, and I didn't get to see you? OMG. Are you booked out today, or can I invite you for lunch? I already have a lunch date, but the more the merrier. Nathina says it's baby making weather. Well, I don't know about that. Not for me, it's not. One and done, Nathina, one and done. Stephen, good morning to you, joining us from the UK. What's the UK weather like? We've got Gabby checking in with us as well. And Cameron says, we can't remind Anna enough, but please slow down on these wet roads. Oh my gosh. Yes, please do. You leave tomorrow. So what's up me, Paul? Let's do lunch. Oh, thank you, Lavana, reminding us that Diane, was it Powell or Powery? I can't remember. Has to make a call back to Jamaica. So we're going to do that this morning. Thanks for the reminder. All right. So let's get this show on the road. So yesterday, I pulled into a parking lot and I saw a Mercedes SUV parked in handicap parking. Now, y'all know that one of my pet peeves in this program, and it has been for many, many years, not in this program, but on the entire platform, is do not take advantage of the handicap spots. If it's not yours to park in other words, if you're not handicapped and you don't have the proper parking permit, because some of y'all may be handicapped and you just have not taken the time to get the parking permit, please go through the correct procedures. It's really not that complicated. Hold on one second. All right. Yes. Okay. So, if it's a situation where you are, most of the times it's just laziness. It's people not wanting to park and then have to walk. This particular area is very, very interesting. I'm not going to specify exactly where it is, but what I will say is this. It is shocking that able-bodied people will find it necessary to park in these spots just because they're lazy and they don't want to walk, or, oh my gosh, I can't find a parking spot 20 feet away. I cannot imagine what the people who need those spots actually go through on a daily basis. Because guess what? There's only one of those in this particular parking lot, only one handicap spot. So it's not like, there are lots of options. They have the one and you have 20, plus you can park a little bit further away and just walk it. So I'm walking by and I'm thinking to myself, do I say anything? You always have that moment when you're like, am I going to be bothered and say anything? Or do we just mind our own business is what people tell you and just keep it moving? And I said to myself, you know what? That's part of the problem now. Everybody in the name of minding their own business are letting people literally get away with murder. And so I decided I'm not going to mind my own business. I'm going to mind the business of people who are probably needing that spot and may now not have it available to them. So I stopped and told the woman to, she saw me trying to talk to her. She had her window rolled up. She rolled her window down and I said, Miss, you're parked in a handicapped spot. I mean, it was quite obvious, but nonetheless, I wanted to say it just in case she missed it. Maybe she can't see and shouldn't be driving at all. And she missed the point that it's a handicapped spot. So she says to me, oh, yes, I'm aware. I'm just waiting on my son to change his clothes at the pool and come back. I was like, really? Okay. So I didn't say anything else, walked off. And I come back and she's still parked there. Now, to her credit, she had moved over one spot. So she was no longer in the handicap spot. So, maybe she got the message loud and clear. So that was it. I wasn't going to say anything else. Like I said, I was just going to keep it moving. And all of a sudden I see her lift up her camera and take a picture of me. And, I'm walking with my child. And I said, oh, really? Mm-hmm. We're going to do that this morning or this afternoon. So I calmly went to my car, put Gigi in the car, and then I turned around and I took a picture of the back of her vehicle. Now listen to the audacity of this woman. I don't know who she is. And y'all know I could have found out if I really wanted to, but I'm going to tell you what I did instead. I took a picture of the back of her vehicle. She gets out of her vehicle and says to me, listen to how rude this woman is. And obviously clueless about who I am. Cause I'm like, lady, in the presence of a child, there's certain words you're not going to use and certain things you're not going to do. And she was very, very lucky. And that's why I put Gigi in the car first before I even turned around and took the picture. Just in case I needed to pop one or two little words on her, I was ready, but I didn't. So when I took the picture, she gets out of the car. Can you not take a picture of my car? And I said, well, can you not take a picture of me? And then she didn't hear when I said that. She didn't hear that part. She's like, oh, and I took a picture of you. And I said, duh, that's why I took a picture of your car. So let's follow the logic here of these entitled people who drive around in their Mercedes SUVs and must think because they probably have a couple coins in the bank, or I don't know, maybe the husband is working and slaving himself to death so she can, have this very luxurious life in the Cayman Islands, but have no manners and no respect for the laws of this country or anything else. She has the audacity to take a photo of me, which we're in public. So if she wants to take a photo of me, she can choose to do so. But when I take a photo of her car, not even of her, she gets out of the car and is trying to roll up on me talking about, can you not take a picture of my car? I was like, oh, girlfriend, what planet are you living on? Like, seriously, really? What are we going to do here now? I was just like, no, ma'am. No. I said, I took a picture of your car because you took a picture of me. It's pretty simple. What's the difference? What's the grievance here? You can take a picture of me and my person and potentially my child, but I can't take a picture of you. Oh, somebody needed to tell her, don't get Sandy started, So, I was like, you know what I'm going to do for her? Somebody's saying, why are we not hearing where it is? I tell you what, it is private property, but even on private property, when you see the signs, it's at school. I'm going to tell you all exactly where it is. It's a school. When you see the signs, you're supposed to still respect the signs. And like I said, I was trying to be nice because, as parents at schools, you always have little situations and you try the nice pill first before they make you, show another side. Mm-hmm. So I emailed the police commissioner and I said, sir, do us both a favor, because this one has a little bit of audacity about her. So do us both a favor. Here's the photo. Contact her and warn her that it is illegal. I don't know what the fine is these days. It should be $12,000 if you ask me, to park in a handicapped spot. There was no need for her to park in the handicapped spot. She claims that she was, waiting on her son to change at the pool. There were more than enough parking spots, even just across the street. And trust me when I tell you, we could all, including her, because she was in no skinny mini, we could all do with a little bit of exercise in our lives. It's good for you to be able to walk a little bit. So, madam, whoever you are driving in this white Mercedes SUV, please check yourself. The next time you think about parking in a handicapped spot, don't do it. That would be my best advice to you. And then to do it with such an attitude. Oh my God. Like, really, lady? No. Don't try it. And then wanting to take my picture. I hope I looked good enough for you. The audacity. Well, here's her car. She's in public. There we go. License plate number 200-649. You have been warned. Driving your Mercedes SUV, please do not park in handicap parking. And when people speak to you, when you know you're wrong and you've done something wrong, don't be taking out your camera and taking a picture of me. What's the title going to be? Like, I can see this now. She's going to run to the little women's group of Cayman because she's probably one of those. Oh, look, this lady told me not to park in handicap parking. And they'll all be like, oh my God, clutch your pearls, ladies. Now, how dare her tell you not to do something that is completely wrong and against the law? She wasn't counting on me lifting my head and seeing her the second she lifted her camera and took a photo of me. The audacity. Like, seriously, woman? You should be ashamed of yourself, but I doubt you care. You're probably up this morning having crumpets and caviar, and you're like, oh, I don't care what these little peasants do here and what their laws are. I'll park in a handicap spot if I want to. Lady, one day you might actually need that handicap spot because you never know what life is going to throw at you. And when other self-entitled people like you are not parked or parking in the spot, then you'll know what it feels like. Have a little bit of respect for handicap spots. It is really, really easy. You know what I'm saying? And trust me, I have been there where you're like, oh my God, I just need to run in one quick second. You can find all sorts of excuses to do the wrong thing. Just don't do it. On that note, here's a PSA about parking in handicap spots. This will make you jackass of the day on this platform.
That was amazing. What's your name anyway? Can I have your number?
So this guy is getting out of bed with this woman. You'll see here in a second that he's actually, he does have a disability. He's slowly putting on his clothes. He gets his,
honey, I'm home. Honey, I'm home.
He gets his crutches and the husband walks in.
How would you like if I took your spot?
Stop parking in disabled spots. Now, that's a little bit of a funny way of getting the message across because obviously he was in bed with the woman's wife saying, how would you like it if I took your spot? But, it's just it really comes down to a matter of respect. And that's what I always remind myself. Even when I go in bathrooms now, I like the big special needs bathroom, like, you get extra room and whatever. But I remind myself somebody might be coming in there who has a wheelchair who actually needs it. So I will wait until the next one becomes available and squeeze my little bonky into the all too small because some of the other ones be kind of tight now, I'm like, nope, leave the handicap bathroom stalls alone because someone might actually need it if a bathroom has one. And, I'll just wait my turn in a regular stall. I've actually gone into the men's restroom first before I will use the handicap spot. Yes, honey child, I did that in Miami at the airport. All the women were lined up there and I'm like, well, is there anybody in the men's? And they're like, oh, no. And I said, well, if there's nobody in there and they have a private stall, I'm going to go in because I really got to go to the bathroom right now. All right. So lady, get your act together. Cameron says, when you drive a Mercedes, you can park anywhere you want. No, sir. No, Cameron. I drove one for the past 5 years and the Mercedes doesn't give you an entitlement to anything. It's just a car, a luxury vehicle that you're probably overpaying for in any event. Yes, the seats are extra comfortable and there are lots of things I'm missing about it right now, but it should not make you feel that you're entitled to do things, including breaking the law. So someone sent a nomination this morning for Jackass of the Day, and it happened to be another Mercedes. I'm just like, what is it with people driving luxury vehicles that they believe that they get a degree of entitlement? You know what? It's a general attitude that comes with the situation, right? So it is a general attitude that, I'm special in life because I have money and I have a position, or my husband has a position, I have prestige. You're really not all that special, especially when you don't even follow the laws. What makes you different than some 25-year-old kid who's in court every day breaking the laws? You're still a lawbreaker. And I see it all the time. Like, there's people doing stuff with the coastal waterways. They're tearing up the environment. They're doing all kind of stuff. And they just have this sense that, oh, because I can hire a lawyer and I've got money, that I'm somebody special. No, you're not. In your head and your little circle of friends, you may be. But when it comes to the law has to put its foot down and treat you the exact same way. So big shout out to the person who sent this other Mercedes this morning. They say jackass of the day. Let me show y'all this one. Almost ran over a pedestrian on the pedestrian crossing at Kirk Market on Eastern Avenue. Lights on the crossing were activated. This is what the NRA, they listen, they struggle with you all even following the laws. Because again, you've got to be paying attention. The roads are wet this morning. And y'all out here driving like you're like a bunch of tontos, like you don't have no sense whatsoever. So nominated for Jackass of the Day, this is a Mercedes vehicle sedan, license plate number 139596. You all have been warned. Whoever this is driving this black Mercedes vehicle, you almost ran somebody over this morning, which could have killed them. Speaking of that, the hit and run that we had last week, the young lady almost lost her life. She required surgery. She had to have like hip surgery and all sorts of stuff. I understand that someone has been arrested in relation to that. We don't yet have a name, but someone has been arrested. And I'm saying thank God, because this woman literally was almost killed as a result of this. She works at she's been on island for about 20 years. She works at one of the local jewelry retailers. And I understand that she cycles all the time. The person said she was lit up like a Christmas tree with lights all over. So she was definitely very, very visible. And just because she's on her bicycle, y'all just think you can run into people, you can ignore them. So I understand that the hit and run driver has been charged, or at the very minimum arrested. I hope he's been charged, he or she. We don't have all the details yet, but by this afternoon, I'm hoping to know exactly who this person is. Almost killed this female cyclist. She's had to have hip replacement surgery and, going through a lot of pain and a long recovery process that could go on for quite some time. I'm just really imploring all of you to have a little bit of respect. Someone says that she's actually lucky to be alive. She had to go through 8 hours of surgery. And this is what you do when you just drive like you don't have no sense. Someone reminds us that the traffic law, now the Traffic Act, gives the police power to regulate blue spots, whether that spot is in a public or private parking lot. Oh, I know it does. Last week, someone sent me a photo. I can't now find it. I think they might have sent it on Facebook, but Facebook Messenger. If you really want to send it to me, send it on WhatsApp. Facebook Messenger is a bit of a challenge, but they sent me, I think it was in the Hurley's parking lot. There was a police officer actually finally ticketing someone for parking in a blue spot. So thank you to the RCIPS when they step up. In fact, I can't remember if it was this commissioner or the one before him, said that they would even take photographic evidence of people parking in these spots as a way to ticket them. And I don't see why not, because you can quickly look up the license plate number, confirm if they have a registration for a handicap spot or not, a blue spot. And if they don't, the picture's clear. It shows the driver's, the plate number clearly. It shows the vehicle. The vehicle owner is responsible regardless of who is driving the vehicle. Ticket them. And I think that this is the approach that the police need to start taking more and more. So I'm going to speak to the police commissioner and I'm going to really agitate him to see if we can't get this done. Make it a citizen's arrest kind of a situation. Every time you see someone who's parked in a blue spot, that shouldn't be, you guys send it to us in any event. And I think making them jackass of the day probably does more to them than paying the ticket, because they feel like, oh, I can just throw money at that. I can pay the $500 fine or whatever it is. It's no big deal. But the public embarrassment of demonstrating that some of these people have no regard for the smallest of laws in this country. They have no regard for special needs people, or, I don't care if your son is changing clothes. You know what I'm saying? I would rather you park in the fire lane with an emergency than to park in a blue spot or block another vehicle. But it wasn't that kind of an emergency. He's changing clothes. I'm like, okay. And that justifies you parking how and why? Oh, Miss Charlene, I see you calling. My apologies. I actually had the phone on I had the phone on mute. There we go. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program. Hello? Caller? For some reason, I can't hear you. Hey, are you there?
Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
You know you're on my street.
Yes, sir. Tell me.
It is not arrestable.
No, it's ticketable.
Correct.
Yes. Yeah, that's fine. Give him a ticket. I mean, when I said citizen arrest, I just mean like, allow the citizens to help you with the policing aspect of it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. All right.
But, I'm not there anymore. I did my 30 years. I'm not there anymore. But
yes.
just to remind that it's not arrestable.
Yeah. Well, they need to increase the fines. I can't recall do you know what it is? Is it $500?
No.
It's less than that?
I think it's $100.
Oh my gosh, no way. That's despicable. We need to have it be, in my opinion, $500 to $1,000.
You damn people's brilliant.
Well, I don't care. Just don't park in the blue spot. It's so simple. It really is really easy to do. I'm gonna ask the government if they can't. They've been working on amending a lot of laws. Put that on the list. Increase the fines for that. Increase the fines for littering. Let's get on it. Thank you so much, caller.
All right, good.
All right, my dear. So we have another person here on WhatsApp that says it's not only a matter of the spot being closer. If a person is in a wheelchair, is rolling through a car park, it's hard to see them through a rearview mirror. Being closer keeps them out of harm's way. Thank you for pointing that out. I appreciate it. Someone is asking, is the hospice event fundraiser this Saturday night? Let me double check on that. Good morning, Colin. Welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Yes, ma'am.
Maybe the phrase you were looking for regarding an earlier police story was gold.
Say that again, sorry.
Gold command.
No, I was actually looking for the term top brass. I had the brass, but I couldn't remember the top.
Okay. And I don't know what you're disturbing those people for. Look here, then people pay money to come here on the plane. You need to have your mouth. And their money is a different color. Somebody that walks the street and does drugs as a habit, as a profession, he's a brilliant. I lick him down every time I see him. You know what he told me? He said, Charlie, you need to learn that your money, my money, is a different color than anybody else's. So it's the same money, but our money is a different color. So that's what you need to learn. Anyway, you have a nice show.
Thank you, darling. Well, I know one thing that's not a different color. That's the color of my flag and my coat of arms. This is the Cayman Islands. If you want to be disrespectful wherever you're from, America, Canada, I don't know exactly where she was from, then that's your business. Although, the irony of it is in America, I find that they respect the blue spots a lot more than when they come here. People in America engage in a lot of road rage. I was looking at this story yesterday and I had to just, I think my friends in America have lost all good senses. But there's this actress named Denise Richards. Her and her husband were almost killed in a road rage situation, probably in California, driving on the roadways. And this is it. Denise Richards in terrifying road rage shooting in LA. So you see how far those crazy people take it? Americans. right? They'll shoot you, they'll stab you. So here's the headline. Denise Richard and her husband, Aaron, I think it's pronounced Pires, was shaken but uninjured after a bullet struck their car this week during a road rage incident in Los Angeles. So on Monday, the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills couple were en route to Popsicle Studio, LA, when another driver became impatient. What a mess. Shouted at them and shot the back of their truck. This is according to a report from TMZ. TMZ put up a photo of the bullet hole vehicle near the left tailgate of the vehicle. And their representatives confirmed on Wednesday to the LA Times that the shooting had occurred but declined to comment any further. Oh my God. Then she tweeted, "What I experienced yesterday with my husband, not that you care, was the most terrifying situation I have ever been in. I'm sorry a shot didn't graze my neck." And then she used a term to describe that driver that is a lot more offensive than jackass of the day. Let's just leave it at that. Say what? But yeah, that's, listen, I expect anything in the States. They have just lost the plot and it just keeps getting worse by the day, right? Somebody's not moving quick enough for you. You just take out your gun and shoot at them. Yeah, that's the solution. But you know, it just is shocking. But I'm glad that her and her husband are okay. My God. Oh, here's the bullet hole. Let me show y'all this. Really, really shocking. I mean, that could have hit a gas tank. That could have hit a person. You know, these people just have zero disregard for the law. And I'm sorry, but when you come to this country, I don't care what color your money is or anything else for that matter. I don't care how much you have. The least you can do is just simply be respectful of the laws. To me, that's not really asking a whole lot. And I think that, yes, you need to do that. And if you don't do it, I'll be happy to call you out here on this program. So I'm going to show you this photo of their vehicle. Let's take some more comments. Yeah, this is shocking. Oh my gosh. What on earth? Look at this. The bullet right in the side. It doesn't look like it's the side, but the gas tank, like I said, thankfully. But that's a bullet hole. Wow. So I don't know what that lady's intentions were yesterday taking my photo, but call me. You want to talk about it? Do call me. You know, let's go sit down for some tea or coffee. I don't drink coffee, but I'll sit down with you and you can talk about why you felt it necessary, although you were in the wrong when you saw me coming back passing you, why you decided that you wanted to take my photo. Let's talk about it, lady. So hopefully the RCIPS will be putting a phone call through to you today, issuing you a warning that if you continue to park in handicapped spots, you will be ticketed. Do it again. All right. So good morning. Nathina says, you tell her, Bobo. Good morning to Barbara. Ethel says, yes, it's disgusting. Shaking my head. No conscience. Real Deal says, ugh, those entitlers. It's in their colonial invading DNA. Well, I don't even know, but it's just rude. You know what I'm saying? Y'all just need to step back and reflect on the messages. By the way, speaking of messages, someone said, re-handicap parking, what example is that to her son? What other bad example is she setting? Yes, honey child. They don't care about saying to their children, we don't park here because we respect the law. We respect handicapped people. We respect the blue spot. Don't ever block it. Don't ever park. You know, no, they're allowing their children to run around killing chickens. And they're standing there looking at it like, oh, that's no big deal. And it's like, why would your child need to do that? Pelting rocks at an animal. And, you know, like I have had the occasion to speak to other people's children, because if my daughter was doing something wrong, I'd want them to speak to her about, hey, kid, don't do that. That's not nice. That's rude, whatever. You know, even sometimes I pass by and I hear them talking to each other. I saw some kids at high school the other day. One boy was like pulling on this girl and getting a bit aggressive. And I said, hey, son, stop it. And I said, young lady, don't make no man manhandle you like that. Don't make him touch you like that. Command respect. I know you're only, probably 14 years old, But I said, command respect from these young men from now. Because if you let that happen at 14, what do you think they'll be doing to you at 19 and 20? And young men, your parents need to be teaching you that you don't put your hands on people like that. Even as a joke, you don't be manhandling a woman, a young girl. Dana, good morning. She says, don't mess with the queen of Bobo. Johan is in the house. Hear him now. He says, try to behave yourself before that school finds a reason to dismiss Gigi because of who your mama is syndrome. Well, you stand by the right thing. And I suppose sometimes there are consequences, but I don't believe that this school would do that because they support doing the right thing. John says she pissed in the wrong pot. Damien says the natives are getting restless. No, it is just, to me, such a simple thing. Brandon, good morning. Why isn't there a law that supports the blue spot? So disrespectful. Well, there is. But as with most things in this country, the law is one thing and enforcement of it is completely something else. And too many people, I believe, are just willing to ignore it because it doesn't impact them. And so, we think, oh, well, that, like I said at the beginning of this, oh, that's not my business. Why do I care? Like I said, you never know when you might be in need of that spot one day yourself. And that's not even the point. The point is it's against the law. Just don't do it. Good morning, caller.
But as a kid man, of a certain age, why we even talking about the law? You know what the situation is? It's designated for people at a bad time in their lives, maybe a physical accident, blah, 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 or people that were born in a way that they will need a kind of accommodation for the rest of their lives. What is it if you're a walking, talking person, you can't go to, 2 parking spots back and just walk? Why do we always have to be talking about, this is the Cayman I grew up in. You wouldn't have to do much to dissuade someone from doing the wrong thing when it comes to a parking spot.
Right.
And if somebody reminds you, you're wrong in a decent way, why is it a big thing? Why can't you be humble? And what do you call it? The what kind of DNA? The colonial DNA?
That was funny how Damon just said that.
Yeah, that was fun. I mean, these, I keep saying, Cayman Airways in particular, there's some sort of booklet, leaflet, pamphlet on board that they can physically pick up in a physical way and read some of the do's and don'ts that we have in the Cayman Islands. They really need to be reading, and it need to have the heftiness and the weightiness of something issued by the government, where laws are and policy pertains.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Cameron, nice day. And to Mr. Johan too, nice day. Bye.
Thank you, my dear. All right. So Dean says, Sandy, I learned a long time ago that Leo is a real threat to lots of people. Good morning to Dave. Dave says, Sandy, the big picture is privilege, and Cayman has shown us all who is important in this country, and it's the Mercedes drivers. I'm sorry to say, Dave, but not in my book. So sorry for her. I hope she does better next time. Strong Will says, good morning, Sandy. Why did she take a picture? Why did she take a picture with you? You must be looking woman. This is the weird part, right? I don't actually know why she took my picture. And like I said, my apologies, trying to eat my healthy oatmeal on my mornings now. My reason for taking her photo, because at that point she already had moved. Mind you, I could have said nothing to her, taken her photo when I was passing her the first time and simply posted it on CMR, and she would not have been the wiser. Let's be very, very clear. But I decided, out of the kindness of my big Leo lioness heart, to actually say something to her, to give her an opportunity. So why she took a picture of me, I would love to know. But like I said, we're in public, so I guess she has all rights to take a picture, just like y'all be taking pictures of people and sending it to me and accidents and this and that. There's no law against that. I was with my child. That was the only thing that I found to be particularly offensive about her wanting to take a picture of me. And I don't know what her intentions are with the picture. Maybe she's gonna have, maybe she's gonna have a dinner party. Let's kind of play this out in our heads here. She's planning on having a dinner party, and at the dinner party, she's gonna be like, "Oh, this lady was rude to me. Does anybody know who she is? Can we get her kicked off the island? Like maybe we can have her status stripped." Maybe that's what she was gonna do. Try and have my immigration papers shredded. Well, honey, chill. Hate to break it to you, but there's no possibility of that happening. They can't send me anywhere. I was born right here. And before, and then an acknowledgement was needed. Those years when you were born, yeah, your parents were born, yeah. And so there was no question about who you for. Big shout out to my Jamaican listeners this morning. I'm having my oatmeal in my Jamaican cup. It says, yeah, man. Jamaica. Lovely. Y'all know I don't really like oatmeal to that extent, but trying to do what's good for the heart, child. Real Deal says it's not only rich people. I've had to tell construction workers to move out of those spots as well. It's always the same reason given. I'm just going to go inside quickly. Oh, no. I mean, without a doubt, Real Deal, I have seen taxi drivers, construction workers, all sorts of people taking advantage of the blue spot. It just so happens that this particular woman took advantage of it and then appeared to have an attitude on top of it. Some people actually apologize and just be like, okay, I'm going to move. She's taking photos of me as though she can do something to me. I'm not the one breaking the law, lady. Diamond Princess, good morning. She says sometimes people don't think of the damage that they cause a person with their careless driving. Morning, Miss Morna. Morna, I was asking, have you been using your vitamin E facial moisturizers? Dana says she snapped a picture of you because you're a Cayman hottie. Oh, you think so? Maybe she wants a date. I mean, I'm not available, but maybe she wanted to look me up later on social media and be like, oh, I'll take you out for lunch, Sandy. Well, honey child, you don't have to go far to find me. I'm right here. You got my number, 936-BOBO. Call me. We can go to lunch any day of the week that you want, except today, because I already got a lunch date. But yes, I might be in high demand. Morning, caller. Hello.
Hi, it's me again.
Yes, sir. Tell me.
Okay, we're heading into the festive season.
Yes.
I want to assist in reducing some of the accidents.
Oh my God. Tell me about it. What's your solution?
My former job was to do serious and fatal accidents.
Oh my goodness.
And listen, have you ever heard about the word red mist?
Red mist?
Yes.
No, I don't think so. In what context? What does that mean?
Happy to know, to do with driving.
Red mist.
Okay, if you've never heard, don't worry about it if you've never heard. I'm going to tell you what it is. Okay. Open up your hard drive and log it in when I give it to you. Ready?
Yes.
Red mist is a term used to describe the state of mind of a driver who was so determined to achieve some goal that there are no more.
Say that once more for me. Red mist is.
Let me take a sip of my hot water.
Okay.
I drink hot water every morning. Let me clear my throat.
Are you doing it with lemon?
No, apple cider vinegar.
Okay.
Every morning.
When I look at Red Mist, it says it's a fictional superhero in the comic book Kick-Ass and the movie Kick-Ass, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Red Mist with driving. Let's see. It's dealing with road rage. So Red Mist is a psychological state that can arise when a driver is so determined to achieve some non-driving related objective, such as following a person. Okay. Tailgating, cutting up at islands, inappropriate undertaken on motor paths. Oh yes. Well, we know what road rage is. I didn't know what red mist was, but road rage, yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You're reading it, but this is come from my brain, from my driver training when I did it a number of years ago. Okay, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me if it's in line with what you're reading. Red mist is a term used to describe the state of mind of a driver so determined to achieve some goal that they are no longer able to. Okay, stop drinking and talking. They are no longer capable of assessing driving risk.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty much spot on.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Can't be drinking and talking. Doesn't work.
All right, very good.
So, and red mist is something that happens to drivers that are in the emergency field, mostly, like police drivers, ambulance drivers, fire officers, and it can even also happen to any driver. If, let's say, you're at work and you get a call that your child is involved in something, and you jump out in your car, you're heading to school or somewhere to see what's happened to your child. And all you're focusing on is getting there to see what's happened to your child. And you're so focusing on your child, you're not focusing on, oh, yeah, coming up in traffic light is red. You don't see the lights, or what you're thinking of is, what's happened to my child? It has happened to them that I know that. Guess what? You're going straight through the traffic light.
Yes.
Or even the side road or the cyclist to your left or side car coming over the side road. And we have a number of accidents happen that way because you're not focused on what's happening along the roadway. All you're focusing on is the task in hand. The task in hand is what you're responding to. Police officers heading to scene of the fight or the whatever they're going to. Fire officers respond to house fire. Emergency medical technician respond to the person who is in need of whatever they respond to. So they're not too much taking care of what's happening on the roadway. And it happens so many times. So there's a way to, there's a cure for that. What I was trying to do that, what we do is we do a running commentary. As you drive along, you give a commentary. You commentate while driving. I had to give 45 minutes of that from Stafford to Birmingham. And that was a nerve-wracking thing. I talked until tears started to run down my face. It's nerve-wracking. Keep talking. But that's what you got to do to pass, to make sure that you're emergency response driving instructor. But it worked. So if you keep talking about, guess what? I used to live in Downtown in early days when I came to Cayman. And I remember passing Tall Tree. And when I reached home, I didn't remember passing Tall Tree. Tall Tree is up there in Savannah.
Yes.
You ever reach home? I don't know where you live. You ever reach home and don't remember passing someplace?
Oh, all this, literally every day, because you just put your thing, your mind is on autopilot, and literally you just drive, and you've driven it so many times that the brain knows.
Because you know where you live, so you just drive home.
Yeah.
So guess what? There could be a child or a cyclist pull out of.
Yeah. Let's
say traveling on Crew Road. Someone could drive out of Ryan Road and you don't even see that cyclist and you hit him. So the cure for that is to give a running commentary.
Yeah. No, and it is a real thing. I mean, I think we might have spoken about this briefly in the show before, but there's something called the gorilla effect, right? And they have done this research over and over again, where they have someone watching people playing basketball, and they tell you, count the number of basketballs that are going in the hoop. And in the middle of that, they send out a gorilla, literally right in the middle of it. And there are people who never see the gorilla. So afterwards, and it's a good portion of people too, they say, you know, how many basketballs, you know, they'll tell them maybe it was 1, 2, whatever. And then they say, okay, and how about the gorilla? And they're like, what gorilla? They never like literally a person comes out in a gorilla suit and they never see that person. And so that demonstrates the fact that when you're either hyper focused on one particular thing or your brain is just on autopilot, there is a lot that you can miss. And it's one of the, it's also one of the reasons why eyewitnesses are not really all that reliable. Like people think, oh, well, surely they saw it, you know, they were there at the scene of the accident, or they saw who did the shooting or whatever. Eyewitnesses are the most reliable thing, which I find is so interesting because police officers, and I'm sure we're going to hear it today at the police press conference, they're always asking for eyewitnesses to come forward, knowing that eyewitnesses in the business of policing are so incredibly unreliable. Why would you be looking for an eyewitness? You know, the nature of what it is eyewitness testimony is just, you have 5 people in the room who saw an incident, and all 5 of them will have a different version of what they saw for a myriad of reasons. One person might be colorblind. The next person was distracted by whatever. The other person has their own personal prejudices. So they didn't see that it was actually the white man who did the shooting and not the black man. And there've been so many instances, and particularly in policing, that this has happened. And there's a famous case. There's a book called, I actually have this book in my collection. It's called The Invisible Gorilla and Other Ways Our Intuitions Deceive Us. It is a fabulous book. And in fact, we should make it part of our book club, which we're going to be launching January. Will not pass without us launching our book club. So let's put this in the runnings. Here's headline for chapter 1. I think I would have seen that. And people don't see it. Can I indulge you a little bit this morning, caller and our listeners? I want to read something to you guys because this demonstrates why being on the road and this concept of conscious driving is something that can elude a lot of us. And here's a perfect example of what happens, right? So this is chapter 1. And again, the chapter title. Call it, can I get you to hang up and I'll just read it? And if you listen, and then you can always call back with your thoughts.
No, I have 1,000 minutes.
Oh, okay. So you don't mind hanging on. All right. So it says around 2:00 on the cold, overcast morning of January the 25th, 1995, a group of 4 Black men left the scene of a shooting at a hamburger restaurant in the Grove Hill section of Boston. As they drove away in a gold Lexus, the police radio erroneously announced that the victim was a cop, leading officers from several districts to join in a 10-mile high-speed chase. In the 15th to 20th minutes of mayhem that ensued, one police car veered off the road and crashed into a parked van. Eventually, the Lexus skid to a stop in a cul-de-sac on Woodruff Way in the Mattapan neighborhood. The suspects fled the car and ran in different directions. One suspect, Robert Smut Brown III, Smut being his street name, I guess, age 24, wearing a dark leather jacket, exited the black passenger side of the car and sprinted towards a chain link fence on the side of the cul-de-sac. The first car in pursuit, an unmarked police vehicle, stopped to the left of the Lexus. Michael Cox, a decorated officer from the police anti-gang unit who'd grown up in the nearby Roxyborough area, got out of the passenger seat and took off after Brown. Cox, who also is Black, was in plain clothes that night, and he wore jeans, a black hoodie, and a parka. Cox got to the fence just after Smut Brown. As Brown scrambled over the top, his jacket got caught on the metal. Cox reached for Brown and tried to pull him back, but Brown managed to fall to the other side. Cox prepared to scale the fence in pursuit, but just as he was starting to climb, his head was struck from behind by a blunt object. perhaps a baton or a flashlight. He fell to the ground. Another police officer had mistaken him for a suspect, and several officers then beat up Cox, kicking him in the head, the back, the face, and mouth. After a few minutes, someone yelled, "Stop, stop, he's a cop, he's a cop." At that point, the officers fled, leaving Cox lying unconscious on the ground with facial wounds, a concussion, and kidney damage. That's how badly they beat the fellow cop, right? So pay attention now. Meanwhile, the pursuit of the suspects continued as more cops arrived. Early on the scene was Kenny Conley, a large athletic man from South Boston who had just joined the police force 4 years earlier, not long after graduating from high school. Conley's cruiser came to a stop about 40 feet away from the gold Lexus. Conley saw Smut Brown scale the fence, drop to the other side, and run. So Conley followed Brown over the fence, chased him on foot for about a mile, and eventually captured him at gunpoint and handcuffed him in a parking lot on River Street. Conley wasn't involved in the assault on Officer Cox, but he began his pursuit of Brown right as Cox was being pulled from the fence. And he scaled the fence right next to where the beating was happening. Although the other murder suspects were caught and the case was considered solved, the assault on Officer Cox remained wide open. Listen to this now. For the next 2 years, internal police investigators and a grand jury sought answers about what happened at the cul-de-sac. Which cops beat Cox? What did they beat him? Sorry, why did they beat him? And did they simply mistake their black colleague for one of the black suspects? If so, why did they flee rather than seek medical help? Little headway was made, and then in 1997, the local prosecutors handed the matter over to federal authorities so they could investigate possible civil rights violations. Cox named 3 officers who he said had attacked him that night, but all of them denied knowing anything about the assault. Initial police reports said that Cox sustained his injuries when he slipped on a patch of ice. Here it is now. This is how the police rewrote history. He slipped on a patch of ice and fell back against the back of one of the police cars. Although many of the nearby 60 cops who were on the scene must have known what happened to Cox, none admitted knowing anything about the beating. Here, for example, is what Kenny Conley, who apprehended Smut Brown, said under oath. Question. So your testimony is that you went over the fence within seconds of seeing him go over the fence. Response. Answer. Yeah. Question. And in that time, you did not see any black plainclothes police officer chasing him? Answer. No, I did not. Question. In fact, no black plainclothes officer was chasing him, according to your testimony. Answer. I did not see any black plainclothes officer chasing him. Question. And if he was chasing him, you would have seen it. Answer. I should have. Question. And if he was holding the suspect as the suspect was at the top of the fence and he was lunging at him, you would have seen that too. Answer. I should have. When asked directly if he would have seen Cox trying to pull Smut Brown from the fence, he responded, I think I would have seen that. Conley's terse reply suggested a reluctant witness who had been advised by lawyers to stick to yes or no answers and not volunteer information. Since he was the cop who had taken up the chase, he was in an ideal position to know what happened. His persistent refusal to admit to having seen Cox effectively blocked the federal prosecutor's attempt to indict the officers involved in the attack, and no one was ever charged with the assault. The only person ever charged with a crime in the case was Kenny Conley himself. Listen to how crazy this is. He was indicted in 1997 for perjury and obstruction of justice because the prosecutors were convinced that Conley was what they call testifying, which is outlandishly claiming under oath not to have seen what was going on right before his eyes. According to this theory, just like the officers who filed reports denying any knowledge of the beating, Conley wouldn't rat out his fellow cops. Testifying. Indeed, shortly after Conley's indictment, Prominent Boston area investigative journalist Dick Lear wrote that Cox scandal shows a Boston police code of silence, a tight inner circle of officers protecting themselves with false stories. But Kenny Conley stuck with his story, and his case went to trial. Smut Brown testified that Conley was the cop who arrested him. He also said that after he dropped over the fence, he looked back and saw a tall white cop standing near the beating. Another police officer also testified that Conley was there. The jurors were incredulous at the notion that Conley could have run to the fence in pursuit of Brown without noticing the beating or even seeing Officer Cox. After the trial, one juror explained, "It was hard for me to believe that even with all of the chaos, he didn't see something." Juror Burgess Nichols said that another juror had told him that his father and uncle had been police officers, and that officers are taught to observe everything because they are, in quotations, trained professionals. Unable to reconcile their expectations and with Conley's testimony that he didn't see Cox, the jury convicted him. Kenny Conley was found guilty of 1 count of perjury and obstruction of justice, and he was sentenced to 34 months in jail. In 2000, after the U.S. Supreme Court declined to hear his case, he was fired from the Boston police force. While his lawyers kept him out of jail with new appeals, Conley took up a new career as a carpenter. Dick Lear, the journalist who reported in the Cox case and the Blue Wall of Silence, never actually met with Kenny Conley until the summer of 2001. After the interview, Lear began to wonder whether Conley might actually be telling the truth about what he saw and experienced during his pursuit of Smut Brown. That's when Lear brought the former cop to visit Dan's laboratory at Harvard. This is a little bit long, but I want y'all to pay attention to this, because this is so important, not just with policing, but with so many things that happen in our lives. When we think we see something and we swear, yes, I was there, I saw it, or yes, I was there, if it happened, I would have seen it. Don't be too sure. Let's continue. This is the next section. It says, gorillas in her midst. The two of us met over a decade ago when Chris was a graduate student in the Harvard University Psychology Department, and Dan had just arrived as a new assistant professor. Let's skip this part about how they met. Let's get on to the meat and potatoes. Right, so with our students as actors and a temporarily vacant floor of the psychology building as a set, we made a short film of 2 teams of people moving around and passing basketballs. One team wore white shirts and the other team wore black. Dan manned the camera and directed. Chris coordinated the action and kept track of which scenes were needed to shoot. We then digitally edited the films and copied it to videotapes. That's what they had back in the day. And our students fanned out across the Harvard campus to run the experiment. They asked volunteers to silently count the number of passes made between the players wearing white, while ignoring any passes by the players wearing black. The video lasted less than a minute, and you can actually go to the invisiblegorilla.com to see it for yourself. While we watch the video carefully and be sure to include both aerial passes and bounce passes in your count. Immediately after the video ended, our students asked the subjects to report how many passes they counted. In the full-length version, the correct answer was 34 or maybe 35. To be honest, it doesn't matter. That's what it says. The pass counting task was intended to keep people engaged in doing something that demanded attention to the action on the screen. But we weren't really interested in pass counting ability. We were actually testing something else. Halfway through the video, a female student wearing a full-body gorilla suit walked into the scene, stopped in the middle of the players, faced the camera, thumped her chest, and then walked off, spending about 9 seconds on screen. After asking subjects about the passes, we then asked a more important question. Did you notice anything unusual when you were doing the counting task? Answer, no. Question, did you notice anything other than the players? Answer, well, there were some elevators and S's painted on the wall. I don't know what the S's were there for. Question, did you notice anyone other than the players? Answer, no. Question, did you notice a gorilla? Answer, a what? Amazingly, roughly half of the subjects in our study did not notice the gorilla. Since then, the experiment has been repeated many, many times under different circumstances with diverse audiences and in multiple countries, but the result is always the same. About half of the people fail to see the gorilla. How can people not see a gorilla walk directly in front of them, turn to face them, beat its chest, and walk away? What made the gorilla invisible? This error of perception results from a lack of attention to an unexpected object. So it goes by the scientific name inattentional blindness. This name distinguishes it from a form of blindness resulting from a damaged visual system. Here, people didn't see the gorilla, not because of a problem with their eyes. When people devote their attention to a particular area or aspect of their visual world, they tend not to notice unexpected objects, even when those unexpected objects are salient, potentially important, and appear right where they are looking. In other words, the subjects were concentrating so hard on counting the passes that they were blind to the gorilla right in front of their eyes. So this entire book was then written around this concept, right? And it is fascinating. And I tell you that you should really, you should read it. Yeah. So even Dateline ABC, they tested a man for the producers of Dateline ABC for their report on this research. And he said, I know that gorilla didn't come through there the first time. Other subjects accused the researchers of switching the tape when they weren't looking, because they swear they'd put their life on the line that the gorilla was not there. So the gorilla study illustrates, perhaps more dramatically than any other, the powerful and persuasive influence of the illusion of attention. So here you are thinking that you're paying attention, you're focused, and you miss the gorilla right in front of you. And one of the more interesting things about this study, and you gotta read this book. Like I said, we need to put this book on our reading list, is it goes on to talk about how this is so crazy when it comes to driving on roads. Oh my God. So back to poor little Kenny Connolly and the police officer now, right? So apparently he linked up with these guys who did this, this research, and they wanted to see what Kenny could do, right? So they say Connolly was physically imposing, but stoic. Lair did most of the talking. They talk about, making him do the video experiment and to see what he could actually find. They said that Connolly's success or failure in noticing the gorilla would not tell us whether or not he saw Michael Cox that night being beaten by Woodruff on Woodruff Way 6 years ago. Of course, and that's important. But they were curious about whether or not Connolly would actually see the gorilla. So he did the same thing. They made him count the passes with the basketball and so on. And he, of course, did not see the gorilla. So the concept that people can miss unexpected events when their attention is otherwise engaged, and again, an unexpected event happening right in front of them, a lot of people just don't understand that concept. They're like, that's impossible. And this research demonstrates that it is very, very possible. And it is called the illusion of attention. And it is so ingrained in our brains that if it was there, I would have seen it. Everyone involved in the case of Kenny Connolly was operating under a false notion of how the mind works. So they've got this mistaken belief that we pay attention to and therefore should notice and remember much more of the world around us than we actually do. And that's not how the brain works. So even Conley himself said that he would have seen the brutal beating of Michael Cox had he actually run right past it. So he used this information to appeal his conviction. I'm trying to remember if he was successful. Hold on, let me see. So what happened here is that Conley was so focused on catching Smut Brown and saw him scaling the fence that literally he had tunnel vision. That's all he could see. So he ran past a police officer in plain uniform that was being beaten by multiple other officers and viciously being beaten, and he didn't see it because he was solely focused on what? Catching the one guy. And it all started, I mean, it's so ironic that it was a bit of misinformation because they thought that they had shot a cop. So everybody is ramped up. They're pumped up. They're like, we have to get these guys. They're cop killers. Turned out it wasn't a cop after all. But that also helps to make them hyper-focused on, we need to catch these criminals. And so even when we hear like stories of police officers, beating people and doing certain things, we don't understand it. We're like, well, why did they do that? Why couldn't they stop? And it is one of those things. It's one of the reasons why I have never supported police chases in any jurisdiction, and particularly here in the Cayman Islands, because once you start that chase, it is near impossible to stop. Physically, you cannot stop. Despite all the years of training that you've had, once you're in that zone, you are hyper-focused and catching that criminal, you can't stop. And people, laypersons like me and you, unless you've done a little bit of research, say, well, why didn't the police officer stop? It's the same reason once why you start chasing someone. In our minds, we say an innocent person doesn't run. If you're innocent, you don't run. Not necessarily. It depends on a lot of different factors. If you live in the wrong neighborhood and somebody starts chasing you, anybody starts chasing you, you run, including police. And you can't stop. Once you start running, you can't tell your brain, oh my God, you need to stop right now, or they're gonna shoot you, you're gonna lose your life. And it's not because you were involved in the incident. It's not because you're guilty of anything. Somebody starts chasing you and you are wired. It's that fight or flight response. And you are going to flee. And that's just what it is. So the outcome of this case is very, very interesting. So the government eventually decided not to retry him in September of 2005. So his legal troubles were finally over. More than 11 years later, after the original incident, he was reinstated as a Boston police officer, but only after being forced to redo at the age of 37 the same police academy training as a new recruit. He was granted $647,000 in back pay for the years that he was off of the force. And in 2007, he was promoted to detective. So what an interesting 11-year ordeal for him. So there's lots of examples that they present in this book to illustrate this point. And there's one, I'm not going to read it today because I understand your capacity to listen to a book is probably not that long. But there is one about road traffic facilities. They talk about the nuclear submarine and the fishing boat. But the road traffic one, I need to find it again because that one is really, really important for us. And it's about cyclists and motorcyclists and pedestrians. And if you fall into any of those categories, right, you are more at risk of losing your life on a roadway than anybody else. And yes, we say careless driving and all this stuff. Part of it is the drivers just do not see you. It's the same thing. The invisible illusion. They don't see you when you're in a bicycle. And the road, this one, when we read it, maybe we'll do it one day next week. The designers of our roads need to take this concept into good consideration when they're designing and making roads. So here we are calling someone this morning jackass of the day because the lights are flashing, somebody's crossing the pedestrian walk. And if they were focused on something else, The truth of the matter is that person is an unintentional jackass. They didn't mean to almost lick the person down. They just didn't see them. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. And so we all need to be a little bit more conscious and aware of our driving surroundings. And there are things that we can do to improve road safety for motorcyclists and riders. So I'm going to read that section to you guys next week. Because again, it is very, very interesting. And it explains a lot of why, if you are a cyclist on the roadway, whether it's a motorcycle, cyclist, pedestrian, you are more risk. You are high risk, actually, for being involved in a incident with a car than other people who are in cars. We'll talk about it. Jonathan has a question this morning. He says, what does TMZ mean? Well, we got an answer for you. So TMZ is they call it a tabloid news website. It's so funny that they call it tabloid, though, because TMZ breaks most of the celebrity related news before anybody else gets to it. They are on top of it. And then everybody else, all the non-tabloid sources, they have to give TMZ credit for being the source, because TMZ has some, they have some inside sources. They worse than CMR. So TMZ stands for, it's the acronym for 30-mile zone, that was historically used in the film and television industry to refer to the so-called studio zone, which is an area that is 30 miles, 48-kilometer radius, centered at the intersection of Beverly Boulevard, and La Cienega Boulevard in Los Angeles, California. And it was called the studio zone because of the number of film and television studios contained within that 30-mile zone. So you guys know that the managing editor for TMZ, the owner, is a guy named Harvey Levin. He is a lawyer. And Harvey was previously a legal expert for the Los Angeles television station KCBS TV, decided to come up with the name TMZ. Morning caller, you got to turn the radio down for me. Hello.
Okay, I'll wait until you finish.
Oh my gosh, yeah, but you got to turn down the background sound because there's a little bit of a delay.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Hello.
Okay. You're talking about, I wanted to finish our conversation earlier.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead. You can't listen through the background. You gotta listen through the phone.
Yes, I turn on TV.
Okay. All right. So
okay,
let's finish it.
Yes, we were on about red mist, but that's all gone. We're on another platform. And you got that's all about. So if you give a commentary, you'll be aware of your surroundings.
But the truth of the matter is, based on this sort of invisible guerrilla theory, is that there's only so much you can be aware of. And they do give you some practical things that you can do to kind of heighten your awareness a little bit more. But we have to actually understand the limitations of the human brain. And that's why I started out this conversation talking about, in the world of policing, a good detective will know that an eyewitness testimony is only, probably maybe 40% accurate. It's not as accurate as people think. There are lots and lots of, historical examples of where eyewitnesses are wrong. You've had women who said, yes, that's the man who raped me. That's the man who assaulted me. I know because he was on top of me. His hands were all over me. And then thank God for DNA evidence, because DNA evidence shows that wasn't the man. And there's so many things that I can account for that. Okay, was he a black man? Was he a Hispanic man? I mean, it's just, all over the place. All right, caller, anything else?
You know why? I did a training, accident reconstruction training, called Listen to Injuries. Listen to injuries. It says you depend on your injuries, then depend on what people say, because injuries will tell you exactly what happened. Because the person said, "Oh, I was wearing my seatbelt." Yet he said he was wearing a seatbelt, yet he has a big gash in his forehead, and you see a bulge in the windscreen, and there's a seatbelt burn on his stomach. No, was that person wearing the seatbelt? No. So who are you gonna believe? The person or the seatbelt burn and the gash in the windscreen? So you listen to the injuries and not what the person saying, because of course they don't want to get a ticket for not wearing a seatbelt. So they're gonna say, "Oh yes, officer was wearing a seatbelt."
Okay.
So listen to that course I went on. Listen to the injuries teaches us to listen. Do not listen to what drivers tell you.
All right, my dear. Thanks very much.
Yes, I'm going to leave you there.
Okay, I appreciate it. And we do have a bit of breaking news that's coming in this morning now as well. So let me show you guys this video. You guys know we get it as it's happening. This person says, thought you'd like this. Boat stuck on the reef outside of our house in Rum Point, Lord Jesus, and the weather not looking pretty. So let me just pull this up on the video so you guys can see this. Folks, when the weather's like this, don't go out in your boat. Use a little bit of common sense because you endanger your own life and the life of others who may have to try to go out there and rescue you. So look at this. The boat is stuck on the reef. The person says Coast Guard are trying to rescue them and they're all jumping off now. Well, not like, but you know. They're all jumping. Okay. Not sure whether they had an engine failure or what was going on. Fishermen, refugees, or who knows. Police boat is on the way now as well. So that was at 8:50 this morning. We had a vessel in some form of distress. Shout out to the Coast Guard out there trying to rescue people that probably should not have even gone out in this weather. It looks like the kind of day that you want to stay on land, folks, as opposed to going on the boat. But thank you very much for sharing that with us out in Rum Point. We know exactly what's going on. I tell y'all, we got all the news. So we have some community notices here. Lions Club has a tent this weekend that they're going to be doing some testing. So I'll put that up, free screening available. So make sure you guys check the community page at CMR Cayman for Facebook. Whew, some of your comments are not meant to be shared on air. Y'all just make me laugh. A passing ship just picked up 9 Cuban migrants 50 miles off of Georgetown and is now en route to Georgetown to drop them off. So you're hearing it first this morning, folks. 9 Cubans are on the way to Grand Cayman today, as opposed to Cayman Brac this time. What a mess. All right, let's use that opportunity to talk about, I'm going to message this to some of our Cayman Brackers because they'll be like, oh, praise the Lord, we're not getting them today. Let's take this opportunity now to change gears a little bit and to talk about the Cuban migrant situation, because this really does require a bit of a discussion. Before we do that, we're going to take a commercial break and listen to a few of these important messages.
Come back home.
It's November, and November is Gimme Story. The Cayman Islands National Cultural Foundation presents in your district, Gimme Story, the Cayman Islands National Storytelling Festival. 6 evenings of free entertainment for the entire family from November the 25th to December the 2nd. Guests arrive at 7 p.m. and show starts at 7:30 p.m. Come on out, because nobody's going to be left behind. We got you covered. West Bay, East End, North Side, Bordentown, Georgetown, and even Cayman Brac. Everyone is going to enjoy a bit of Cayman's history via storytelling. This year, we have the best of Cayman's homegrown and resident storytellers that Anna know from Anna Born, including Rita Escavanovich, Nasir Sakushalet, Matt Brown, King Navasa, Giovanni Ebanks, and a host of others. For more information, visit artscayman.org or visit the Facebook page and Instagram page at Cayman Culture. Vote for the best fish fry in every district and wash it down with a little swanky. Did I mention that you get in for free? And they're starting in time, so try and hurry up. Give me a story. That's gonna be a good time this year, so don't miss out. I do have to ask our radio listeners if you can actually hear that commercial, because I'm not sure that you did. Interesting. Let me just hold on one quick second here. Waiting for some responses. Someone says, good morning. Can you get a breaking news sound effect? Oh, yes. That person said they did hear it. Okay. All right. I didn't see the little slider thing going up and down, so I wasn't sure if you guys could actually hear it. All right. And here's another commercial that hopefully you can hear on radio.
Get ready, sports fans. The Cayman Islands Classic NCAA Division I basketball tournament is back at the John Gray Gymnasium from November 21st to 23rd. Come out and enjoy 3 days of nonstop competitive basketball action featuring Kansas State, Western Kentucky, Rhode Island, Nevada, Tulane, Illinois State, Akron, and LSU, who will battle it out on the court for the coveted Cayman Classic Tournament trophy. Witness as some of college basketball's best coaches rally their teams together in this 3-day head-to-head non-stop competitive basketball competition. Get all your tournament passes and general admission tickets today online at eventpro.ky or CaymanIslandClassic.com. November 21st through 23rd, presented by KMAX Sports and proudly sponsored by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport, the Ministry of Youth, Sports, Culture, and Heritage, Tortuga, The Westin, Smoothie King, Cayman Cabana, Captain Marvin's, Cost You Less, Fast Signs, and Flow. Get ready, sports fans. The Cayman Islands Classic NCAA Division I basketball tournament is back at the John Gray Gymnasium from November 21st to 23rd. Come out and enjoy 3 days of nonstop competitive basketball action featuring Kansas State, Western Kentucky, Rhode Island, Nevada, Tulane, Illinois State, Akron, and LSU, who will battle it out on the court for the coveted Cayman Classic Tournament trophy. Witness as some of college basketball's best coaches rally their teams together in this 3-day head-to-head non-stop competitive basketball competition. Get all your tournament passes and general admission tickets today online at eventpro.ky or CaymanIslandClassic.com. November 21st through 23rd, presented by KMAX Sports and proudly sponsored by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport, the Ministry of Youth, Sports, Culture, and Heritage, Tortuga, The Westin, Smoothie King, Cayman Cabana, Captain Marvin's, Cost You Less, Fast Signs, and Flow.
All right, folks, welcome back to the program. Thank you so much we had a few listeners that let me know. Just a little bit bizarre because sometimes I don't see the slider when I should, like the actual audio level is moving, but then you can hear it. Not sure what that's about. Cameron says, Sandy with the voiceovers. I got to tell you a joke about this. Sometimes I do get requested to actually do the voiceovers myself because they want to hear a Caymanian voice, which I think is so funny. Because I don't consider myself a voiceover expert. They're professionals like that last one. That's a proper voiceover professional, honey chill. We pay people to do that, right? And so we have access to the professionals. Some people are like, no, we want your voice. We don't want this other voice, So I'll give you my voice if you want it. So the funny thing is when I send it to the professionals to put it together, they're like, you do have a knack for it. Like you should do more of it and you will continue to hone your voiceover skills. I was like, oh my God, really? You think I could do that for a living? Wow. AI, artificial intelligence, is going to be taking over voiceovers here shortly, child. They already have them now, but they still sound a little bit stiff. Sometime, I think it was last month, we had a voiceover done for a government agency and we sent them the final thing. And they're like, oh no, we want a live person to do it. I'm like, that. I said, I don't know whether that's a compliment for the voiceover artist or what, but that actually is a live person. So, but it sounded so polished. I think that they were like, oh, that's not a live person. I'm like, yes, it is. Anyway, that's a whole industry that is in transition at the moment because of artificial intelligence. It's only a matter of time before it will be the machines completely doing it, and you won't be able to tell the difference between a live person and a real person. Right now, you still can. If you listen carefully, you still can. Let's talk about the Cubans. Oh, these poor people. I feel so sorry for them. But, you know, I feel sorry for them, but I feel sorry for us more than them, if that makes any sense. So, yes, I can understand their plight. As someone who has, and I want to always stress this, who has lived in another man's country and who wanted to stay at that time in that man's country, I feel like sometimes you would do almost anything. These so-called marriages of convenience, at some level, I understand why people want to do it, but it is still wrong. And it adds a level of, especially when the people are not contributing in any way to your community, any positive way, it adds a lot of complex issues to the immigration and migration problems that we all face. And Cameron says, I still can't believe you're from Southside London. I think my English, my attempts at an English accent are probably the worst. Anyway, yes. So what can I tell you, except that the Cubans are coming in fast and furious. I mean, literally by the boatload, came on in and said, boy, this coming in by the boatload. That's no joke. They are coming in by the boatload. So here we are talking about them this morning, and we have 9 more coming. So on average right now, they're coming on a daily basis almost. Might as well round it up to a daily basis. What I would say is this. If you speak to the average Caymanian, are they happy about the fact that Cubans are coming every single day? No, they're not happy about it. One of the reasons why they're not happy about it is that we are spending an exorbitant amount of money maintaining these Cuban migrants here until we can repatriate them back home. Remember a few months ago, I told you that this guy reached out to me. Now, people are still under the misguided impression that, oh, they just want to get to America. Let them get to Miami. I'm not so sure that Cubans are trying to get to America as much as you think anymore. They're just trying to get to anywhere that they can make a decent living or have a government take care of them outside of Cuba. Things are very difficult at the moment in Cuba. The pandemic, the economic, listen, we're hit by inflation. You don't think Cubans are hit by inflation too? They're hit by inflation as well. Their inflation, I mean, maybe they're not paying the same prices because their price structure is a little bit different. But at the end of the day, they're still feeling the economic pinch. They're feeling job losses. They're feeling, the dollar isn't stretching as far as it used to. And so this is a difficulty for them. And it has become our problem because we are so close to Cuba, that their migration and their immigration issues in short order impact us as well. And we don't want to be spending $2-3 million on Cuban problems or Cuban migrants coming into this jurisdiction when we have issues of our own. Sorry, my Cuban cousins and friends. We got family right in Havana. Okay, actually they're Caymanians, but Cuban Caymanians, right? They don't want to come back here, but they won't come back now though. They didn't want to come back before because they had to work for everything. And they were so used to getting handouts from the government because that's how, I'm sorry to say, but, it's a bit of a communism and socialism mixed in together. Oh, you get milk provided by the government until you're the age of 5 or 6. And then you get a voucher for rice every week. And I'm like, what? You don't get up and go work? You get all these things just handed to you? Well, that's not how it works in this country. Like, we need to hustle. So when our cousins came here from Cuba, because they're so used to the Cuban way of life, one was a qualified teacher, they be doctors and have all kind of degrees and stuff. And they come to Cayman and they're like, oh, we got to be hustling to keep up with the Joneses or the Ebankses or the McFields. they're Black Cubans. Yeah, you got to be doing that. And we don't want to do that. We'd rather go back to Cuba. They left Cayman and went back to Cuba because them now want to work. It's like, what did you think was going on here? They have a misconception about a lot of things. And I'm sad to say that, that does impact us in a real way. I have them messaging me all the time on, Facebook Messenger in particular. Sometimes they WhatsApp me, asking me in Spanish, what's going on with the Cuban migrants. Oh, my husband was in this group, And I'm like, okay, well, what you should know is the reality of the situation is that once immigration or CBC starts the process of processing them, you will eventually be advised of what is going to happen, and they'll give them a little phone card and they can call you and whatever. Until that point, you will not have any contact with them. Child, they be messaging me like, why haven't they called yet? And I'm just like, because that's not how it works. So, it is a difficult situation for them, but it's also becoming a difficult situation for us. And so what I want to say is the more it becomes a difficult situation for us, unfortunately, the less these people are going to be welcomed here. Now, there's such a thing as Caymankind, and Caymankind is expiring on this particular issue because of the sheer volume of people that we have coming in every single day. And to be quite frank and honest, another problem is that some of them have demonstrated a ability to be completely ungrateful. And believe me, you Caymanians don't like nothing worse than an ungrateful person, especially a foreign national that's ungrateful. When you come here as a migrant, if you get chicken, don't be complaining about the chicken that you're getting. We're not going to provide you with lobster and steak and all this other stuff. I'm just telling y'all, this is how Caymanians think, okay? Don't be working illegally, because a lot of that's going on. The second they set their foot in Cayman, they got connections already. And the red truck coming to pick them up and take them to a job site. And Caymanians are like, hold on, just pump the brakes. That is a job opportunity that maybe an unemployed Caymanian could have gotten. I'm just telling you all the cold hard facts this morning. Right? They don't like this food. They don't like that. One plate of food, not enough. They need 3. And it's like, wait a minute. Pump the brakes. When you were in Cuba, you could be telling the Cuban government must give you 5 portions of rice for the month. Well, they're not going to be doing that. So it's a combination of a lot of things. And it's the tensions with the Cuban migrants is something that is growing, and it's not growing in a positive way. So the government really needs to step up. And I mean, pronto. Okay? Get on it. Some of it is cultural misunderstandings, but let me tell you what some of the headlines are at the moment trending around the world as it relates to Cuban nationals. So this one was November the 16th, the Miami Herald. Big shout out to Jacqueline Charles. As you guys know, she's a friend to CMR. And she co-wrote this piece in the Miami Herald, along with Sarah Ortiz Blaines. And it is about Venezuelan migrants who are trying to cross the U.S. border from Mexico. And they were sitting near a San Antonio shelter. So a lot of countries are dealing with migrants. And anytime there is an economic slump, it's not just us that feel it. The entire world is feeling it. And that's when migrants are motivated to move. They move because of violence in their own countries. They move because of the economics in their own countries and bad political leaders. Those are some of the top reasons why you find people migrating and wanting to leave their homeland to go somewhere else. Good morning, caller.
Yeah, just a reminder of the list that you just went down, the ungratefulness list and all that. Mm-hmm. And, you got people who want to participate in this scheme of the affordable homes. Mm-hmm. And you will hear people from those pockets, especially in West Bay, saying that the people who are successful at the applications for the affordable home because they're very, very they're very wanted on the local scene. I usually Cubans, and what is the last straw with them was when they were standing out here by GAB, the government administration building, with their ungratefulness. As I've known Cuban refugees from the time I was about 5, 6 years old, and for them to come then and just carry on like that out in front of the administration building was my last straw with them, to be honest. But they're stopping Caymanians from either competing, let's use the word competing, with Caymanians for affordable homes. And seems like the are more successful at getting these homes than the Caymanians. I'm not applying for any homes, so I don't know. I've heard this time and time again, though. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I'm not even sure if that's just a perception or if that is a reality that they're actually, competing with us for homes. I mean, I don't know that that's actually happening. I think the sense of it is 1.2 million? Hold on, let me just pull up the story on CMR. Has already been spent this year on Cuban migrants. So listen, the Caymanian people are like, I don't care what the story is. That kind of money being spent on Cuban migrants is a lot. That is money that could be helping with affordable housing. That is money that could be going towards alleviating, the government could do another month or two for the CUC bill. That is money that could be used for Caymanian people. During tough economic times, people are less likely to be as Cayman kind as they ordinarily would be. And it's understandable from a human nature perspective. So, let's be honest here. When the plate of food on your table is in jeopardy of not having what you want on it or not being full to give you a belly full, you are more likely to be tolerant of other nationalities coming into your country, and specifically the ones who are coming here without going through the proper process. Y'all already pissed off about the ones coming through immigration and being able to get a work permit because they know how to take advantage of the system. So you're already very, very aware of those types of imbalances in the system, right? You can't get a job because, Diane over here, another Diane, not my moniker, Diane Powell or Powery, whichever one, I can't remember which one I chose now, but not her. There's another Diane from, Saskatchewan who can come in and get a job in the DPP's office. And you as a Caymanian went through the ropes. You went to law school. You got a first class pass and upper second. You've done what you had to do, and you can't get articles. You can't get called to the bar. You can't get a job in the DPP's office because it's overrun by other people. And that's why y'all be like, Sandy, can you do an FOI in the DPP's office, please? And see how many crown councils, senior crown councils, and where they're from. And they can find them from every jurisdiction but the Cayman Islands. And it's so interesting, I must say, because I sit there every day in court and I hear them. And I have nothing against foreign workers. What the issue is when foreign workers are getting jobs over qualified, willing to work Caymanians. If you're not qualified, you're not willing to work, well, where you get put. It happens. I'm aware that it happens. I have firsthand knowledge and experience. I know from whence I speaketh. This category is even more egregious. And it is more egregious because we have a suspicion, hear me out now, we have a suspicion, folks, that there is a degree of human trafficking that is happening as it relates to these Cubans. I'll tell you why in a second. Good morning, my dear. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Sandra. C. McPhail here.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Pretty good. Listen, I'm going to a meeting and listening to you about the migrants.
Oh, yes, sir.
I have been preaching this to Caymanian people ever since they first came here There's a difference between migrants and refugees.
Yes.
Migrants and refugees are two different kinds of people. We owe nothing to to economic migrants. We owe nothing to them. We owe the responsibility under the international law to refugees. But we owe nothing to migrants. And the problem is that we allow them to have so much privilege in our country, spending all our money and so forth. I do not understand why the government, after so many years, has not gone back to Cuba and renegotiated this program they have to send them back. I noticed that when the American Coast Guard pick up the migrants from Haiti and from Cuba, they take them right back into Havana and drop them off. Why can't we do the same thing?
Yep.
Why can't we do the same? They're not refugees.
Yes.
Their country's not at war.
Yes.
They're not not part of political parties who have battles in their own country. They're looking for a better way of life, to make more money, to get more food, more clothes for their children, to drive a good car. They're not refugees. They're migrants. You see? And our government has to do something more than what they're doing, because the word has gone out now in Cuba. If you come to Cayman now, that they take care of you and give you food and give you jobs and give you housing, and then you can apply to stay.
That's right.
And it's not a coincidence now. That nearly every migrant that comes now asks for asylum in Cayman.
Absolutely.
Before they were not doing that. They wanted to go on to other places.
Right.
Now they have changed their plan, and they say they want to get asylum in Cayman.
That's right.
So what they do, they come here and we give them asylum. We put them up for a while, and then in the next 2 or 3 years, they're gone to where they actually wanted to go, initially started to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have to be smarter. We have to be smarter, because if this continues, we're going to have 400 and 500 of them every year coming here.
And that's exactly where I was going. Thank you so much, Mr. Steve Matfield, for that commentary, because the point really, a lot of people in Cayman like, oh, they don't want to come here, just make them go into the US. That has changed. That is no longer their end goal. Because if that was the end goal, they would never stall the process. They would never apply for political asylum, and every one of them is doing that.
Exactly. That's what they're doing now. And we have to be smarter than we are. And we have to look through and see what's going on. And we don't. We're just going around willy-nilly and saying, oh, well, we have to wait till Cuba give us the go-ahead to send them back. I would send them right back to Cuba.
Yep, I think we definitely need to review the policy.
Because right now in Cuba, they can't eat bread. They don't have any flour. They don't have anything to eat. And then they come here, they demonstrate because the food is not enough. They're not grateful people. They're not grateful people. I have to deal with them. Sometimes before I became chairman of the Status and Permanent Residence Board, I had to deal with them coming to my office, for legal advice. And I know what kind of people they are. And so I have been preaching to the politicians that I can get my air so, and things are not is being done. They need to go back to Havana, and they need to negotiate this agreement. They have to send them back.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for those comments. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, my dear. Thanks very much. So, folks, I agree 100% with Mr. Steve Matfield. That is the problem. Every single week, I hear Caymanians say, "Oh, but they don't want to stay in Cayman. Why can't we just help them get on to America?" Y'all are missing the updated memo. They want to come here. I'm telling you, that doctor who messaged me a couple months ago, he's a doctor in Cuba, and he's like, "Oh, I hear the rules have changed where I can come there now and get a job." And I said, "What? I can get on a boat illegally and come into Cayman and get a job?" I said, "No, you can't." I said, "Once you land here as a migrant, you have no rights to work." That's what they're telling each other in Cuba. Go to the Cayman Islands and you will get a job. You will have rights to work. And this man swore me up and down about his friend come here and his friend tell him this and blah, 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 blah. And when I finally got through to him and he recognized what I was saying, he's like, "Oh, they were told in Cuba," this is what he told me, a physician, so you know he's not no dummy, that there has been a change in policy and we are allowing them now to come to these jurisdictions and they have all rights, including the right of employment immediately upon coming here. I said, Lord Jesus, what a mess we are in. Really? I was like, who told you that? Oh, Cubans that have come there and then there's been a change. I said, there has been no change in our legal position. The only way to get this message across to them, unfortunately, is to expedite their return to Cuba. And I agree with Mr. Macfield when he says the way to do that properly is because right now they have all rights to apply for political asylum, and that's what they do. And then once they're denied, I have it on good authority that recently we denied some 11 of them. When they are denied, they turn around. And what do they do? No, hold on. More than 11. This is what my source said on Saturday because I was asking the same question because I'm like, geez, I'm peace. Another boatload just came in again. My government sources says they have a right of appeal to the Asylum Appeals Tribunal so that that extra steps takes time. Of course, they all have to be interviewed and assessed. So there's all this processing of them that has to happen. Most of them don't come with no documents on purpose so that we don't know who the frig they are. We don't know if they're criminals, child molesters, murderers, a doctor, a lawyer. We don't know because they know it's going to be harder to identify them and find out who they are. And that's more red tape and more back and forth with the Cuban government. I'm not trying to sound anti-Cuban. Like I said, we are part Cuban. We have family members even now that live in Cuba. But I understand the realities of the situation. And the realities of the situation is the more desperate they become. We've already spent $1.3 million this year so far on Cuban migrants. The more desperate they become, the more they're going to put pressure on us. The more they're going to continue showing up at our doorsteps. How much can Cayman bear? Okay. They've already refused over 100 migrants. Listen to this. So the process continues and every effort is being made to move things along quickly. But you see, those 100 migrants that are denied, they all turn around and appeal. They got all kind of lawyers in Cayman that can give them legal aid. They probably apply for legal aid too. And then they give them the appeals right. And then they go before the tribunal. Let me be very, very clear. The vast majority of people who are coming here, as Mr. Macfield said, it has nothing to do with asylum. So all these people that are applying for asylum, it is a tactic to stalemate the situation, to stall the process. They don't know nothing about no political asylum. They're economic refugees. They are running from bad financial situations. And it's like, well, what about us? Can we run somewhere because the economy is shit in Cayman? No. To be fair, it's kind of shit everywhere. But, some places worse than others. And that is why we have an obligation. When someone messaged me, I think that was over the weekend, and I saw a lot of your comments in reference to this. Poor little Jamaican fella, he messaged to say, can I move to the Cayman Islands and get a job? I was like, because he's eating hand to foot in Cayman. I said, sir, with all due respect, what makes you think you're going to not be eating hand to foot in Cayman? Is it hand to foot or hand to hand? It's hand to foot, right? And I said, what makes you think that that is not going to be the same situation? Cayman not easy. You guys have gotten the wrong memo. Oh, move to the Cayman Islands. That's a rich country. They got all kind of money, blah, blah. Okay, sir. First of all, he said he's looking for a security job, right? And I saw someone comment that I said, well, that's an unskilled worker as far as I'm concerned. And they said, that's not unskilled. Listen, it's unskilled. I don't know what world y'all think that security officers they might take one little course. It is unskilled. You don't have to take some big time exam to be able to become a security worker. You don't have to go to school. You don't have to do nothing. So it is considered an unskilled job. Okay. You're not taking an electrician examination. You're not taking a security examination. Nobody's testing your ability. And if they are, it's a very rudimentary test. You're barely getting a clean police record to become a security guard in this jurisdiction. So, right. So the point that I'm making here, folks, is the grass may be different on the other side. Maybe it's a different shade of green, but it's not always greener. And the more that Caymanians are feeling the pinch, if you will, ourselves, the less tolerant we become of wanting people to come into this jurisdiction. This is a lesson in just human nature. It is what it is. You don't have to like it, but I'm telling you the reality of how Caymanians are feeling. And it's not just Caymanians. Americans don't want people coming over the Mexican border illegally. You go through the correct process, you do it the right way, which can take you years. But people feel like, you know what? If you do it the right way and you qualify, at least we can say that there was a process. When you're just coming in a rinky-dinky boat and showing up, we begin to go, huh? This is not gonna work. Now, one of the reasons that people think that there's a degree of human trafficking that's actually happening with this, and I have to agree that something is amiss, is a lot of the Cubans show up relatively fresh. They don't look like nobody who's been at sea for no 2 or 3 days. So there is a bit of an undercurrent story here that they're having these bigger vessels, right? Pay them money to go so far. So they'll bring them out of Cuban waters, bring them very, very close to Cayman waters. Then they throw their little dinky boat off the side and they put them in it and push them and say, there you go. But the vast majority of the journey was not made in that little dinky boat. And their family members and themselves are paying these larger boats in order to make this happen. I believe it. Y'all know I'm not a conspiracy theorist, so you got to really come with some concrete evidence to me. But there have been a few things that I have seen that makes me believe that this is exactly what's happening. And if this is the case, why is the Cayman Islands government not taking a different approach? Something is wrong with us if we are accepting that we might be part of a human trafficking situation. And once they hit our shores, the thinking then is, well, there's nothing that we can do. Well, Mr. McField just gave us a suggestion. He said, go back to Cuba. Tell them we need to renegotiate. But you know, there's a lot of countries in this world where they're not going back to Cuba. Nope. They're just, the US, for example, they're setting their own policy. They're saying, listen, Bobo, we don't want your people. Get going. Let me give you some examples of right now how this is happening. Headline from, which one is this? NBC News. The US will begin deporting Cubans by plane in coming weeks, US officials say. This is November the 15th, 2022, to be clear when this is. It's not an old time news. The US is planning to begin deporting Cuban migrants who cross undocumented into the US from Mexico on flights back to Cuba, 2 US officials have said. The officials have said that the flights will begin in the coming weeks as ICE locates Cubans with final orders of deportation to fill planes. Reuters first reported on Friday that the Cuban government has agreed to accept deportation flights. Well, guess what? If they can agree to accept them from America, they sure as hell can agree to accept them from Cayman. What is the difference? We are in less of a position to take people in and to spend $1.3 million thus far this year. We just don't have the money. It's as simple as that. No offense to our Cuban cousins, but if you can't come in the right way and you can't go through the process of getting a work permit, and finding legitimate, real work, then we are sorry, we cannot assist you. Yeah. So the US government is going to be doing it. The deportation flights will be the first of their kind since the Trump administration. Well, as Cuba has recently refused to accept its own citizens back from the US. You see, the Cuban government is shady AF. You think they care that their migrants are leaving us less mouths for them to feed? So they have an interest in making them go. That's less headache for them. Especially since a lot of the ones leaving would be a lot of the undesirables, I hate to tell you. However, they're now agreeing to accept deportees under a deal reached between the two countries that will restart visa processing for Cubans seeking to enter the US legally. So the illegal ones, you have an option, but if you don't go that route and you enter illegally, now the Cuban government is saying, all right, we'll take you back. The number of Cuban migrants crossing into the US by land has drastically increased over the past year, in large part because Cubans are not sent back into Mexico due to Title 42 COVID-19 restrictions, like migrants of other nationalities. So the other nationalities get pushed back across the border, but the Cubans have always had a little bit of a special compensation, if you will. More than 248,000 Cubans were apprehended. Let me say that again. 248,000 were apprehended crossing the U.S. border. Yes, sir. Hello.
Well, do you want to finish what you want to say? Hello?
Hi. No, you can go ahead.
I can go ahead. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Well, first of all, you're really hitting the legal issues today. I just want to add a little. Well, I want to say something really about refugees, but let me just say a very brief thing about what you were reading earlier about the powers of observation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, way back more than 40 years ago, when I was being taught about cross-examining witnesses in court, and a lot of things of how powers of observation don't work. I was told about, there's a famous book, I don't want to get too technical, it's by Mr. Francis Wellman. This was like a lawyer who really made it in the New York bar in the 20s. And he wrote a book called The Art of Cross-Examination.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was reading that book, he described something similar to what you were describing, but these were like the earliest studies. Yours is a more modern, more emphatic, more popular study. Mm-hmm. But there was an earlier study where he did, there was a lecturer who arranged this thing. Like there were about 20 people in his class. So he arranged about 3 of them to break into the class, one with a gun, one with a knife, one with a stick, and so on, just to break into the class and just steal maybe a book or something from the lecturer and then rush out after a few seconds. And after he did that, he asked the students, can you write what you saw? It was amazing. First of all, some of them didn't see 3 people. Some people saw 5. Some people didn't see a gun. Some people saw 2 guns. Then some people didn't even recognize that one of the people who broke in was a member of their class who they had been together, for months and months. And it kicked off this thing of saying, hey, look, powers of observation are not as strong as one might imagine. That's why you will find, and this, Sandy, that's why you will find these days, with the advancement in DNA, you will find that very often judges, depending on the kind of case, they will tell the jury, by the way, this car was stolen, but there's no DNA connecting the person to it. Because having found that the powers of physical observation are very weak, now they tend to insist on DNA wherever possible. But what I wanted to say really is about the migrants. You see, first of all, it's very good to hear Dr. Steve, call into your show. That's the first thing. Second, just to add to what he said, you see, this whole issue about refugees is something which actually started with the persecution of the Jews, like in modern times. It started with the persecution of the Jews in Europe, okay? And when the way they were persecuted was such that, some of them tried to make it to the United States. And the boats were sent back because they said we didn't want Jews in the United States. So that's what gave rise to this new impetus to say, let us create international conventions so that if people are really being persecuted in that way for their religious beliefs, for cultural belief, or race and so on, they should be able to go to another country and claim asylum. It was never meant for people who are just trying to go to another country so that they can live a better life. But unfortunately, in the United States, they've now politicized this to say, oh, if people are escaping drug dealers or crime and so on, they should come and be able to come and get asylum. That is not right, because otherwise half the world can be refugees, because half the world is mired in crime. But let me end on this about these issues. You talked a little bit earlier about people being employed in the Cayman Islands in different capacities, and while Caymanians are not being given opportunities. This, I've said this many times on the other forum. I don't know why in Cayman, a person who finishes law school cannot get articles. Where I came from, when the government sponsored me to go and study for my law degree, they guaranteed me articles. They had a program to say that anybody who was a local person should be given articles because they wanted to make sure that the legal profession is localized. So when I came to Cayman to find that Caymanians can't get articles, they can't even say, for example, in the portfolio of legal affairs, in that portfolio, they should say, for example, that every year they should have 4 or 5 people who are articling. They shouldn't have to go to the private sector to go and beg. And one thing that they don't seem to understand is this. Like, I used to write legislation, as you know, in government. Virtually everybody in that department is a foreigner. Okay, some of them, but they are not Caymanian. You can't, in a lot of countries in the world, in Canada, you can't draft legislation unless you are a local Canadian citizen. Reason, because legislation is sensitive. Usually in the early stages, you don't want the public to know what it is. Why? Because people can use that information to gain an advantage on the international markets and so on and so forth. And yet in Cayman, there has never even been a policy to say that it is a priority, that we want to make sure that people who are prosecuting cases are local people. The people who are writing legislation are local people. The people who are doing the civil cases against our people are also local people. There's apparently no understanding about this. Just to close, usually there are people trolling the whole world to try and find the drafters who can be spies for them. But in Cayman, we don't understand that. And I just hope that people can become more sensitive with this and they try to correct it. Otherwise, I think local people are really being trashed. That's my story for today, Sandra. So I think it's great. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
thank you, my dear. So thanks so much for those comments. And it's good when other people actually see exactly, what's happening. Some people refuse to see it. And to me, this is one of those things where it doesn't really matter to me whether you're a foreigner, an expat, or a foreigner, a Caymanian, or whatever. If this is happening, then surely it's right before your eyes, and this isn't the guerrilla experience, but is there a reason why you can't see it? Sometimes we can't see it because we're blinded by our own position. So we are blinded by the fact that we don't want to see it, because the day that you recognize that Caymanians are being marginalized in their own country, then maybe as a foreigner, you have to reevaluate what you're even doing here. You're like, wow, I'm taking a position that could be for a Caymanian to be taken. Why are they not training Caymanians to be a more active part of the judiciary? Y'all don't think that it gets under my skin when I sit in court every single day and I see all the defense lawyers, all the prosecutors, all the magistrates and judges, pretty much hardly a Caymanian to be seen? I mean, eventually they become a Caymanian because they've been here so long. I get that. But I'm talking about real Caymanians. You know what I'm saying? When you stand up before a magistrate and here comes, John Ebanks again for the millionth time, that magistrate, like Magistrate Hernandez, can give him a real reading. Why you before me again with your drugs and this and that? People who are integrated into the society who have a clue, who are not always just living behind their gated communities and have no clue what's really going on. Some of these defendants need a real discussion with someone who's like, you know what? I understand where you come from and I understand, but you still need to get your life together. And this is why, you know, I see some magistrates doing it. I mean, shout out to Magistrate, Chief Magistrate Foldats. He's been here long enough. He has a little bit of an understanding of things. But even the defendants themselves, what hope do they have when from the second they get arrested, it's a foreign police officer, it's a foreign detective. Everybody, when they finally go to prison, it's a foreigner as well. Everybody in the system is a foreigner. So maybe they're going there thinking, why am I even going to bother to try? Why am I going to go get that law degree? Why am I going to put all this information in my head when I'm still going to run up against all these roadblocks? And there's not just a glass ceiling, because with a glass ceiling, at least you can see up in the sky and you can daydream about it. This is going to be a solid, concrete 12-foot ceiling. You can't see out. You're still in prison, despite the fact that you've made the sacrifices to get the education and get the piece of paper. Good morning, Denny.
Buenos días.
¿Cómo estás?
Muy bien, gracias. ¿Y usted?
Bastante bien, gracias.
My Spanish is improving.
Yeah, I think you added a couple more words this morning, man. Dime.
You know what really gets under my skin?
Tell me.
When a lawyer, who's the premier, can't see when Kathy Wilkes makes a decision that is clearly against the law. That just baffles me. And I agree with the previous caller about articling, because, for example, you didn't get to article. Why is it that somebody with your capability wasn't able to go ahead and become a lawyer if that's what you wanted to do? Why should you have gatekeepers who decide, you know what, I don't like her, and I'm gonna let her get to where she could be a lawyer? That kind of stuff happens in a colonial system that is set up for the purposes of benefiting others. Right? Well, I oftentimes say that Section 31, subsection 3 of the Constitution order lays out very clearly what the problem is, and Caymanians look at it. I guess many times they just ignore what's being said and think, well, I don't want to be a lawyer, so what's the big deal? Yeah, but what happens if your child wants to be a lawyer?
Yeah.
What if your child says, you know what, I want to be an electrician?
Yes.
And you're like, okay, I don't think that's going to affect me. And then your child changes his mind in 10 years and now wants to be a lawyer. You did nothing to secure the future. And it has tremendous benefits outside of just the people getting the jobs. The Caymanians should be able to get those jobs. But the effects go way beyond that. And so here's the problem, as I see it. We have people that we can see that something is wrong. When it's pointed out what is wrong, more specifically, people don't want to take action. Because we have a society that if you take actions that people in the upper echelons of society don't like
telling them not to park in handicap parking.
Yes.
It's the same mentality.
Yeah. And you get penalized. You know the way I look at it? Penalize me if you wish. Okay? Because the problem is that if we all take the view, like you were saying earlier, and don't get involved, Sandy, just move on. You know? If everyone takes the view that they're not going to get involved in a system that is designed for people to be involved, the system won't work. So I just wish that, I don't know how else to say. I've said this until I'm blue in my face.
Mm-hmm,
I'm just repeating myself at the moment. But people need to get involved and say what it is they don't want.
Yes.
I don't talking about having a discussion at a table, at a private dinner, and just saying what you don't want. I'm talking, for example, we have a proposed amendment to the anti-corruption bill regarding when you intentionally to make it so that you have to raise the standard to make it prove that the person intentionally did the thing. The only people that's going to benefit are those who are in the public service who want to do wrong.
Well,
that's
to that
benefit.
bill, let me put this out here right now. I have reached out to Premier Pampton for some explanation on that, because I know from a legal perspective that any of those offenses that you see of that caliber always have a mens rea element, whether it states it in that way or not. There's always a mens rea that is required. So I need to understand, I think the people of the Cayman Islands need to understand exactly what this change is, because I'm being told that it isn't that. So
okay. Let's put it this way. If you're driving down the road and someone ran out in front of your car and you couldn't avoid it, you hit the person and you killed the person, would you be charged? You didn't intend to knock the person over. Would you be charged?
There are offenses of negligence when it comes to driving, but I don't like people to give driving offenses as an example, because driving offenses tend to be strict liability offenses.
Give me one you like.
In other words, if you hit the person, it doesn't matter if you intended to hit them or not. You hit them either because you weren't paying attention, negligence, whatever. So the act of hitting them will certainly lend to the fact that there was some degree of negligence involved in your part as a driver. So yes, you will be charged and will be convicted.
Why is it that way? Why is it that way? Why do you have strict liability then? Why in relation to driving? Why do you have strict liability?
Because it doesn't matter. I mean, they tend to be lesser offenses, but it doesn't matter what your mental state was. You still committed an offense.
Oh no. Let's back up a second. You were driving down the road. You were paying attention.
But it doesn't matter.
The person ran out. No, I understand what the law says. I get that. You're driving down the road. You're paying full attention. So much so you're not even listening to CMR. Okay? And the person just runs out in front of you and you have no time, no place. Bam, the person is dead. Now, you didn't intend to do that at all. You weren't drunk. Why should that offense be a strict liability?
Well, that may not result in a charge, because there is an element of accidents do happen. And if it can be demonstrated that the other person was entirely at fault for the incident, you're probably not going to be charged for that. So just because you hit someone and they end up dead,
it was 5 o'clock in the morning,
doesn't mean that you're going to be charged for it.
It's 5 o'clock in the morning and there's nobody else on the street. There's no eyewitnesses, even as bad as you think eyewitnesses are. It's just you.
No CCTV
and that other person.
footage.
They're dead. No nothing.
Well, I mean, the police.
Just your word against theirs.
Well, they're dead, so their word might be forensically, maybe, I don't know, but they're not going to be doing too much talking. Right. But I would say that from a policing perspective, obviously the police will carry out a thorough investigation. They may even check your phone to see, were you on the phone at the time of the accident? So they'll carry out an investigation. And if they can find anything,
everything is above board. You're paying attention. You're not distracted by anything.
Well, if you were fully paying attention, would you not have seen the person on the side?
You saw the person,
and they still jumped out.
But the fact of the matter is the person just ran out in the road.
Yeah, I mean that almost happened to me
the other day. Ran out the road, and you hit the person and killed him.
I don't think you're going to be charged.
You didn't have time to respond.
Yeah,
you don't think you would be charged.
No, I don't think you're going to be charged.
Okay.
If the police found all those elements present, you're not going to be charged for that.
Okay. Well,
because
we'll see the next time it happens.
Even that offense requires some sort of at least negligence on the part of the driver. So that isn't a strict liability. Strict liability offenses are going to be at the bottom of the totem pole: parking in a handicapped spot, ignoring a stoplight, like those types of offenses. When you start to get into, like bodily harm or killing somebody in road traffic fatalities, those types of things, and there's either negligence, recklessness, there's some term like that would be required, which is the equivalent of some degree of mens rea for those offenses. So they're still not really considered strict liability offenses. Leave me there.
In the case of the politician making a decision, I sure hope that what they're not going to say is, oops, I didn't mean to do that when they're making decisions. I hope that it's a process of careful consideration. So putting that provision in is just going to complicate the process of really convicting someone, because where would you get the evidence from that they intentionally did it?
But you always have to find evidence that there was some degree of a mental element. That's what I'm telling you. There has to be some degree of intent.
Where would you get it from? Where'd you get
it? Well, that's what police are there for. So you have to look to email messages, telephone calls, what the person said to this person, eyewitnesses coming forward. There's the person's action sometimes, how they did it. So let's take an example when it comes to corruption. But I mean, obviously, this kind of veering off topic a little bit. But let's take the guy who was convicted years ago on the housing board, right? I forget what his name is now, who's now on another board. So let's take him, for example. So he was selling insurance to people who were applying for National Housing Trust housing, right? How do you prove his intent was to try to, defraud? I forget exactly what he was charged with, but it's like breach of trust. So how was his intent to breach trust? Well, the mere fact that he didn't go to the board and disclose that I'm going to be doing this, full disclosure. So he omitted to do something. That can show an attempt to cover it up. Like, why wouldn't he do it? If he thought it was above board and there was nothing wrong with it, why wouldn't he have just said to the board, oh, by the way, I also sell insurance on the side, and so I'm going to be selling insurance to these particular clients? And, is this something, he would ask the question, is this something the board needs to approve, or do I just need to inform you, or whatever? But there was an attempt to cover it up. He went and got information from the office on who these people are. He contacted them privately, not from his National Trust Housing email address or from that office. He picked up his own private phone and called them and said, oh, he also lied to them that some of them was telling them that they had been approved for housing when they hadn't been approved. And now you're going to require this insurance policy, or you require this insurance policy before you will be approved. So that was a lie. So, I mean, there's always things that a person will do to at least make people, and this is where jurors and judges will have to come to a conclusion, to decide, did this person actually intend to do this? Or were they reckless about, them doing it? So they took actions that no sensible, right-thinking person would have done. So you've got the, what do they call it? The average man test or whatever in law that it's called. But let me get back to your original point, Denny. You were talking about, even using myself as an example of how, I couldn't get articles because they're gatekeepers. And these gatekeepers are in organizations and companies like the Maples and Callers of the world and the Walkers of the world and whatever. And they're the ones who say, nope, we don't want Sandra Hill to get articles in this country. Although she had the grades, she might have the intellectual capacity. Yeah, she can do the job, but her mouth is too big. And she's the type of person who's going to come into any organization. And if she sees wrong happening, we can't trust that she will not stand up and do something about it. And that's exactly what the case was, right? And so you're a liability to them because you have a mouth. And as people say in this country, number one, your mouth don't join church. And number two, you're not going to stay quiet. And even as I was in law school, right? This was a little bit of a tension. I worked at Maples and Calder for over 3 years. And I had Caymanians say to me, Sandy, just shut your mouth, toe the line, and it is what it is. And I had a very, I mean, I will never forget this conversation when I handed in my resignation and I was leaving. I remember a Caymanian attorney saying to me, "Why are you leaving? There have been people like myself, the Oliver Watlers of the world, the Teresa Pitkrins of the world, all these people who were early pioneers in the legal profession who came before you. They worked hard and they went through being called the N-word and all this kind of stuff in order for you to have it easier." And I said, "Well, you might think it's easier. What has happened is there is a degree of decorum now that they use to still hold you back. No, they can't call you the N-word just outright because I would punch them in the face. However, they will find another way to say in their very proper English language, another way to basically call me the N-word and put up the concrete ceiling, and you get to go nowhere." Now, here's the difference, Denny, right? There are people in life who they can stop when they say no. I wasn't one of those people. So as I often say in this program, you're right where you're supposed to be. People will do everything possible to put roadblocks in your way, and you just keep pushing. If you got to kick the roadblocks, jump over them, go around them, whatever, you just keep finding a way. Now, the irony of it is, you wouldn't give me articles because you needed to keep me quiet or to, hush me up. We can't have you be a mover and a shaker and be an attorney in this country. But all you did was, I know, right? That's my point. All you did was empower me more to think outside the box and to realize that, wow, I've got a writing degree, I ran a business, I can do this, I can do that. What's stopping me from doing other things? And here we are. Lawyers now call me to help them with stuff. Lawyers call me to expose wrongdoing in the judiciary on behalf of their clients. Corporate attorneys.
And they still want to be quiet?
Corporate attorneys now show some respect. Whether it's out of fear or not, I don't care. But when they see me, it's no longer like, oh, there's that little Caymanian who couldn't get articles. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, damn, there's CMR. We better toe the line. Yeah. So the message, though, that I want to get, I'm sure there are Caymanians who are out there listening to this right now, who are in the same situation. They can't get a job. They're in tourism. They can't. Don't let people stop you. Don't let people determine what your future is going to be. You take back the reins. And the one thing you have to do now, let me be very, very clear, is you have to have the skill set and the education to be able to do it. You have to know how to carry yourself in their circle, or if you're hanging out with your boys from down in Windsor Park, you have to be that flexible. But don't allow anybody to dictate to you who you're going to be or what you're going to be in life. They cannot stop you. And that type of grit and determination has to come with a level of commitment.
Yes, yes, I agree. But we onto the other issue that I raised. I'll just ask you whether you agree or disagree with the intentional amendment. Because
I need to hear, I have not yet made a determination, and this is why I've invited the premier to speak on it, because I need to understand the exact amendment and what the intentions are behind the amendment. And we need to get that.
Have you read the bill?
I haven't. And so this is where additional work now is required on my part.
Yeah.
And there has to be an understanding. So, when the court tries to interpret what bills say, they always go back to what did the legislators intend? And that really, I think, is what we need to understand.
Except that I don't think that just what the legislators intend is the whole story. More importantly is what did they legislate? What did they actually do in legislation? Because one can set out to achieve something in particular. I'll give you one example. When the animals law was amended in the past to protect the blue and rock iguanas, they unintentionally protected the green iguana. Mm-hmm. And they had to go back and amend the law to unprotect the green iguana so that they could be culled.
And this is why, Denny, these conversations are important. It's important before something becomes an act, when the bills are out, that there's public discussion on it. We understand the intent of the legislators, and then people who have the legal ability or the common sense ability, it's a high level, high functioning ability to pick it apart, then do so. So if the legislators go, oh, wow, we didn't intend that interpretation or that reading, but now that people are saying that, maybe we need to go to the drawing board and change this word from could to should to would or whatever, right? So there's a tweaking process, and that's why public consultation when it comes to legislation is very, very important. And the average person doesn't understand it, and the average person is afraid of legislation, and so oftentimes they do nothing. They sit back and let legislation pass without asking questions. So I don't have an issue with anybody asking the question. I think that we shouldn't jump to any conclusion. So here's an interesting interpretation on it from Mr. Balika. He says the offense in the new amendment says that if you do anything, in quotation, in abuse of your office or prejudicial to someone else's rights. That doesn't make it harder. You know what I'm saying? That is pretty much, that's going to catch them all.
Well, that's what the legislation says. But we're talking about how the bill would amend the legislation to say that it has to be intentional.
Well, that's a question.
In other words, will you end up with certain scenarios in which abuse was done, but because this is Bleak on the law, and as a legal drafter, let's hear what he has to say on the point. Hold on one second. Hello? Can you hear us?
Hello?
Hi.
Hello. Am I kicking Danny off? I don't want to do that.
No, he's actually on hold, but because you're calling on WhatsApp, I believe, there are two different types of calls.
Yes, I am, yeah.
Yeah, there are two different types of calls.
Okay, let me just... I'll be very, very brief. You see, what I meant by first of all, I think what you're doing between you and Danny and so on is elevating the discussion so that we can discuss this, the intention and what they have done and so on. What I forgot to mention in my little comment was, you see, this proposed new section already says that you commit the offense if you do something that is arbitrary and in abuse of office. But now they are saying that even if you prove that it was already arbitrary, it was already in abuse of office, but you have to show in addition to that there was an intention to be arbitrary. There was an intention to act in abuse of office. That's what overly raises the standard that you have to meet. And that's where the problem is. And I think it's very important, since the two of you are talking about the intention behind legislation. It's important to go back to these kinds of offenses where they originated, like in England. In England, when they originated the offense of breach of trust, and which is similar to this one, they said basically, look, if you are somebody who is serving Her Majesty's government, you can't play ignorant. You can't do certain things and say, well, but I didn't know that that by selling this product, which is worth, by selling this government property, which is worth 10 million, I sold it for 1 million. I was totally ignorant. I didn't know. They're saying you've got a duty as a person who works on the part of the public to ensure you don't do things that are negligent, that are arbitrary and so on. That's why, for example, under section 119 of the Penal Code, merely being negligent in your duties can be an offense.
Yes.
There are countries in the world where there are countries in the world where you sell property to outside the government, and you don't follow the tender procedures, and the government loses money. People have been criminally charged with that. So basically, the issue of intention can be a problem. Let me end on a very short thing in the BVI. When I was in the BVI, people used to bounce checks all the time. They used to bounce checks all the time until the supermarkets would develop a little bulletin board where they put the checks there. And when they sought legal advice from us, we told them, we said, well, the way the BVI law is written, is such that you can't prosecute somebody for just bouncing a check like in the United States. You have to show that there was an intention to get those goods for free before you can prosecute. And we can't prove intention. So it was only then when they amended the law. So it's about the same kind of thing here, because intention in certain circumstances can be hard to prove. But I think you should keep discussing this, because if they write this law in this way, it will actually be contradicting the other offenses that exist under the Penal Code, such as Section 118 of the Penal Code about breach of trust, 119 negligence, 121 deliberate disobedience to law, as well as Section 13 of the anti-corruption law, which is also breach of trust. It should carefully be debated, and I hope that you can pick it up very well with the Premier. Thanks very much.
Okay. So I'm going to say that we're going to spend some time. Like I said, I've already reached out to the authorities to start the conversation on this amendment. I've seen that it has caused some discussion in the community already, but I want to wrap up because I do have to go to the police press conference this morning. So I do want to wrap up on the point with the Cuban migrant. So Denny, any final comments on the Cuban migrants at this particular stage? Hello? Uh-oh, can't hear him. All right, he can call back. All right, so listen, the bottom line, I've been trying to get to this conversation for a minute too, is that something needs to be done. It needs to be done urgently about the Cuban migrant situation. We cannot continue to have a number of people coming in with no abatement in how they're getting out. In fact, the Cubans seem to be doing a better job themselves of moving on than we are prepared to do when it comes to repatriation. So someone reminded me this morning that they had a group of about 15 to 20 that left on Sunday, that left the jurisdiction on Sunday. And then last month, there was some 40 that left, and those individuals are trying to continue on their journey elsewhere. So the ones that left on Sunday, they reached Honduras yesterday. Now, it's so interesting that our government they do a half-assed job of informing us of this type of information. Normally, we're the only ones who are telling you when they're coming in immediately and when they're leaving. CBC, you could step it up a little bit and do a better job. But it's interesting to know that we have been able to get rid of them voluntarily. They're leaving, as opposed to us being able to, again, as Mr. Macfield said, have that agreement amended. So here's the thing with the U.S. They've not been able to send any repatriation or deportation flights back to Cuba since December the 29th of 2020. So that's almost 2 years now. And quite interestingly enough, as a result of that, they have had to go back to the drawing board, renegotiate with the Cuban government to be able to take their own people back, which is really deplorable. Like I said, the Cuban government is playing a lot of games, and we need them to get their act together as well. Danny, any final comments?
Yeah, I didn't, because you had me on hold. I wasn't able to hear the first part of what
okay.
said, but never mind that. But what I would say is that I think when it comes to certain bills, you need more than 28 days to debate them. One of the bills that comes to my mind is the identification stuff. Those things are loaded with concepts that require you to have a little bit of understanding about technology to really appreciate the implications of that. And I don't think 28 days would cut it for that, much less other types of more complicated ones. To make matters worse, the government is returning the air show on, I think it's the 4th of December, I think it is, which is right around the time when the time would run out for commenting on this bill. So we're going into a period in which people will be distracted with other things in society and not paying attention to these dry things, but dry things that have significant impact on their lives.
Well, I mean, listen, there's always something going on. So, I don't think an air show should, that shouldn't do the trick. An air show shouldn't distract you from looking at important legislation that's being amended.
You and I won't disagree on that, but you would be shocked how little it takes to distract some people.
Mm-hmm. All right, my dear, leave it there.
Anyhow, take care.
Yes. All right, very good, folks. So of course, I do want to remind all of you that there is a press conference here at 11 o'clock this morning, a police press conference. I got a jiggy on the road so I can drive and take my time and not be rushing to get there. I see someone making a comment. I think it was Leanna Anderson. She says, even scared of CMR because they're straightforward and blunt. Everyone's scared of CMR. What a mess. Leanna also mentioned that she is, did I see that? Did I see this point somewhere? That you're the only female construction worker and you're having some issues. I want to talk about that one day. We just see the first Black female mayor that has been elected as mayor for Los Angeles, and women continue to, because of their sex, and they're seen as, oh, you can't do certain professions, you can't do certain industries, you can't do certain things. They continue to be marginalized and pushed down because we live in a male-dominated world. And so they will tell you, oh, you can't be a firefighter, oh, you can't be a police officer, and you can't do this, and you can't do that. And it's just absolutely ridiculous. And it's time that we need to have a conversation. Because in fact, in the United States of America, there's an increase right now in the number of women that are entering the construction field. And why not? Why can't women do construction? If they want to build a house, let them build a house. Some of the best engineers in the world are women. So we'll have to leave that conversation, Leanna, for another day, but please do continue to tune in. So the most that I can say this morning, folks, is listen, the Cuban situation is dire. Our government, if it requires additional, talks and discussions and revamping of what happens now with the Cuban authorities, then we are going to have to do that. There's no two ways about it. We have to prioritize this. It's something that has taken a toll on this small community. And, we don't have much of a choice. Cuban folks, if you're listening to the program, I don't know if you can get Bobo all the way in Cuba. Maybe you can get it online. Hear me clearly when I say to you that life in this country is not going to necessarily be any easier for you. Initially you might have the government giving you a food voucher, but even you guys are complaining, oh, the $100, a week or every other week, it's not enough for groceries. It's all we have. We're not printing money. To the little fella in Jamaica, poor him. He says, I was wondering if I could ask you a favor. I'm a hardworking and very honest security officer. But he meant officer. I'm in Jamaica right now, and I'm wondering if you could seek out a good security company over there in the Cayman Island that's hiring for me, because I'm here just working for hand to mouth, and I'm not going to lie, it's very hard here on a single dad like myself. Let me just bust the bubble right here and now. Okay. I'll be the bubble buster, the reality checker, the cold hard truth teller. Life in the Cayman Islands is not a walk in the park. This is no longer the 80s and the 90s where we enjoyed, for those of you who were in it, taxi drivers could make all kind of money hand over fist. The money was flowing. The money was flowing from drugs. The money was flowing from tourism, illegal, unlegal activity. It was flowing in every which direction. That isn't the case anymore. We have a larger population. We have roads that make you sit in traffic for an hour each day, frustrating you to death because we haven't built enough roads to keep up with the population growth. We have healthcare systems that are having a difficult time. Physicians saying that they haven't gotten a pay raise in 20 years. Physicians also saying that there's a concrete ceiling for them too, that Caymanians are being held down in the medical field and the medical profession. So that no matter what profession you choose, there is going to be, these barriers and these, ceilings that you have to face. You go to school for all this time. This person says during the Anthony Eden years, blocking your Caymanian doctors from accessing specialist training was de rigueur, sorry. And this is, this is coming from physicians, lawyers, saying the exact same thing, that they're having issues. They can't, there's no upward mobility. They're not getting partnerships in these law firms, et cetera, et cetera. It is an ongoing challenge. And unfortunately, the more it happens, the more people are going to become a particular way where you're going to find more and more people saying, you're not welcome here. We don't want you here. That dialogue, unfortunately, continues. And the reason why? Because people are feeling the strain. They're feeling the strain of inflation, the high gas prices, right? The everything. They just don't know what to do. Caymanians are living hand to mouth. So we're not going to be as welcoming with anybody if we don't see a way forward for Caymanians. That's a reality. The government needs to understand that. The people need to understand that. So even if you're here as a foreign worker, and big shout out to all the expats in the Cayman Islands. I know y'all love this program because everywhere you go, you tell me, oh my God, you're Sandy. I love your show. And I love you for tuning in and listening to the show. But I tell it like it is. And so what I'm telling you, as the pie appears to become smaller and smaller, the tolerance of people, of the Caymanian people in particular, to extend that warm Cayman-kind hospitality is going to become less and less. It is nothing unique to this jurisdiction. It happens all over the world. I understand why people in California feel a particular way about Mexicans crossing illegally over the border. This is how it is. This is how human nature is, in fact. What we need to do is to continue to create a more balanced environment for Caymanians first. And then there's more jobs than there are Caymanians. So there will always be foreign workers who can come and have opportunities here. Maybe it's not going to be everybody in your family coming now. Maybe it's just the one or two. But people will always come in because there are a lot of jobs here. But there shouldn't be a lot of jobs here with Caymanians not getting the opportunity first. That's all I'm saying. And if they're qualified, hardworking Caymanians, then yeah, you know what I'm saying? They deserve an opportunity. If you're not qualified, you're not hardworking, then y'all know that I don't give anybody, I don't care if you're Caymanian or not. That's the reason why I say unqualified politicians, y'all better get together. I can't give nobody a pass if you haven't done what you needed to do. But as Denny pointed out, from my own experience, I'm very much aware of, oh, well, we're not going to like her because she speaks out, not because of her qualifications or anything else. It's some other reason why they're not going to give you an opportunity. Because you're a woman, because the color of your skin, because you got one green eye and one blue eye. All kind of foolishness people will find as a way to discriminate against you. So, I wish everybody luck. I understand the perils of, trying to find work in a foreign country. Like I said, I've lived in another man's country. I feel it on both ends and I understand it. But I am a Caymanian first and foremost. And as a Caymanian, I have a right to return to my country and I should be able to find employment if I wish to work and live in this country. Alejandro wants to call in 936-BOBO, 936-2626. That'll be the final call of the day. Go ahead and give us a call. But yes, these are the real world implications of what all of us are having to deal with and what we are struggling with. Now, let me tell you something. Somebody said this morning, Sandy, thank you so much for the word of encouragement. I needed that today. Push the boundaries. Push the boundaries, yes. Don't let people push you out the door. You stand your ground and you push the boundaries. And sometimes it means that you end up like me, doing something in life that you never quite envisioned yourself doing, but all of the elements of the universe push you in that direction regardless. And so you embrace it and you do it to the best of your ability and you can create things that are wonderful and amazing. And all of a sudden people are going to listen to you. All of a sudden people are going to do the right thing because, oh my God, if I end up on CMR, the number of phone calls that I get day in and day out from people who are like, oh, I went to complain with this company. So I'm going to call CMR. Then they're on it. Something they couldn't do for months. All of a sudden they can find a solution and they can get it done. Isn't that amazing? It's called the CMR effect. Let's just give it a name. Remember yesterday's show with Nadine? Oh God, what a hot mess. But do you know that after that show, Nadine showed up? Remember the message from the woman who was with her in Miami and had to pay everything because Nadine never had no money and she promised to pay her back and never did? Nadine showed up to the woman's shop and took money and paid her some money. And it's not everything, but she got paid some money. And the woman said, oh my God, you did what nobody else could do. You got me some of my money back. That's the CMR effect. So whatever it takes to keep y'all in the straight and narrow, so be it. Good morning, caller.
Yes, Miss Sandra.
Yes. How are you?
The thing I was listening to about Caymanians working together and things like this. Now, right? I was having a conversation with a friend of mine yesterday, and we were talking about like the police, law enforcement officers, and all this type of stuff, right? Imagine you having police officers that are like, just say for example, you know, like when they're driving a scout and they have to be like accompanied with another officer. Imagine how easier it would be if they had a Caymanian officer obligated that they have to be traveling with, even if it's a foreign officer, one foreign officer and one Caymanian officer, and they can just sit down and say, yo, you see that person sitting there on the corner? He's a good person. Don't even bother him. You know, like, because they know the people, like the Caymanians can pinpoint each other. They know who is who. They don't victimize each other as criminals. Not every single one of us that is doing something that is not supposed to be done. Let's just say smoking ganja, for an example. A lot of police officers approach me personally. I can say this out public because even to the judge knows I smoke ganja. But if they see you smoking ganja and they see you're not giving any trouble, you're working, you're doing something constructive, they would just give you a blight, probably tell you just throw it away and whatever. But I do not see the reason why they have to have foreign police officers that would harass a regular individual. You know, it's an embarrassment when I have to walk on the street and know that I have to argue about my rights because they're just victimizing me because of the area and location I live. I have to change my location just so I don't get victimized the same way I get. And I'm a professional in my trade. And it makes me feel like I am a criminal. It doesn't give a comfort for the community to acknowledge helping these people out because we don't know who to trust. And I've stated it so many times to people, when you have an officer come and know that you are a witness of a crime and they cannot force you to say anything because we do not trust what they're going to use that information about, because the person that isn't concerned might just be the person that is against you. So this is what I wanted to call about because it needs to be heard. A lot of these things that are going on in Cayman, they're just giving a second thought to Cayman. It's not even a second thought. They're putting us on the bottom list because there's a person more qualified than us, that they have a history of their own. But they cannot trust our own history. They feel like we are nothing. They don't trust us. It's already said by what his name is, Mr. Matt Field, you know, they say they don't trust the Caymanians. They do not trust the Caymanians because they feel that the Caymanians are going to work for their family. So what do they expect the foreigners to do? The foreigners are going to work for themselves too. I would prefer to know that we are helping each other, knowing that I am doing something that I'm not supposed to be doing, but he's not doing anything wrong. You know, I have a medical condition now. I can just say that I have a mental issue. I have anxiety, all these type of things. Everyone is born with these things as long as you have peer pressure and a lot of pressure from the government especially. And you're trying to live a right life. I went to California first time 2006, right after I-1 had hit us and we just got our state back together. And I in 2012 I got actually 2010 I got medically prescribed for ganja. I've been smoking ever since. I have been a better person ever since I have started smoking ganja because I had to deal with certain issues. My mom had mental health. A lot of pressure been on me. And I hate to be discriminated as a weed head or a not educated person because I have skills that people beg for. And that's how I empower myself. And I would love a lot of people to acknowledge that as well.
Well, caller, thank you very much.
Call like that.
Yes, sir. We appreciate the phone call.
All right. Thank you.
All right, Alejandro. Okay, good. All right, folks. So, we're all, as Alejandro pointed out, dealing with different things in a different way. I want to end this show on a positive note, and then I really got to go. I want to encourage our people to just continue to remain as positive as you can. I know that we are facing difficult times, and a lot of us have, as the callers pointed out, we've had challenging upbringings. We've had, parents who may have had issues that was then passed on to us. And the truth of the matter is, all of this makes us who we are. And sometimes it means that we're struggling with issues, right? I also want to encourage our young people to find a way, as constructively as you can, to try to deal with those struggles that you're having. Self-medicating, it might make you feel better because you can have a puff, but a lot of times you gotta go a little bit deeper to be able to find how to move past it without having to resort to smoking marijuana. Because that is something that unfortunately will have ill effects on your health, just the process of smoking. At some point, you're going to be dealing with cancers and lung disease and other things. And that's going to throw you for a curveball as well. So before you get there, let's figure out how to get you some therapy and some constructive ways of dealing with your stresses in life. Because trust me, we all have them in one form or another. And everybody deals with it differently. There are people who will smoke. There are people who are going to snort cocaine. There are people who are going to drink. There are people who have OCD issues, who pick at their skins. Like I said, people with habits. And I'm just like, what's the stressor? What's causing this? And so, sometimes there's nothing wrong, not sometimes, all the time, there's nothing wrong with therapy. There's nothing wrong with talking with someone and trying to get and work out some of your anxiety. I was speaking to a young lady this week who has dealt with abuse and was dealing with a bit of a situation. And after we got done talking, she's like, thanks for the therapy session. That's not what it was intended to be. In a way, that's what it ended up being. But let me assure you that I made a suggestion to her about how to potentially, when you've been abused, especially sexual abuse, a lot of times you feel very, very helpless. And you don't feel like at the time anybody listens to you. And even now you struggle with self-worth and just memories and the whole 9 yards, right? This is going to be a lifelong coping situation. And there are different things that will trigger it. But sometimes even just writing a letter, keeping a journal, writing out your feelings, writing to your perpetrator and then burning it. You don't necessarily have to deliver it to them, although if it was me, I'd deliver it to them. But, there's different things that you can do that can help you with the healing process. Some people become counselors themselves. And by helping other people, they help to heal themselves. Some people, just the ability to finally be able to talk about their trauma is so empowering because they may have gone for years holding that in. And when you hold it in, it kills you. You have to be able to talk about it. So I just want to encourage you this morning, whatever it is that you're going through, whether it's unemployment, physical abuse, psychological abuse, sexual abuse, just know that on the other side of this trauma, the rainbow still exists and you have to remain positive. Don't let anybody stop you because, I always say you're right where you're supposed to be. But where you're supposed to be right now isn't where you're going to be tomorrow or the next week or next year or whatever. So always agitate for positive change in your life to do something better. Who would have guessed that here we are on this talk show that we would be here today? Yeah, I would be here today. But thousands of people listening to me, and everywhere I go, somebody's like, oh my God, can I do a photo? Over the weekend, some young kids, can I have your autograph? It was on a $1 bill. So I was like, don't you want to spend the money? But it's like you're impactful, hopefully in a positive way, in the lives of other people. We're trying to hold people accountable. When it comes to the financial side of things, lawyers can make good money. Some of them make $10,000 a month, $6,000 a month, $20,000, $25,000. But listen, when you have a product that reaches hundreds of thousands of people and you can sell that to people, the possibilities are endless. So I'm not going to have a ceiling put on me by the government, as the last government tried to do. I'm not going to have a ceiling put on me by private sector because they have to pay attention. They're like, wow, even if we don't like her, everybody's listening to Sandy. If we want to get our message out there, what better way to do it than through her platform? because it will get attention. We want to promote our NPOs. Yep, let's go on Sandy's talk show. And then the advertisers start to come. And as we can see from other people who've been doing this, there's no limit to what you can make in advertising revenue, honey child. So you go from saying, oh yeah, if I make $10,000 a month as a lawyer, that's good money. I can't talk, I can't speak up, I can't be involved in my community, right? There's always some partner from another place holding a little gavel over my head saying, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. But look at Sandy. There is no ceiling. There is no glass ceiling to what CMR can do. Talk about empowerment. Find your power from within and do what you got to do. And trust me, if you got to kick some butt and take some names, then by God, do what you got to do. Y'all have a beautiful day, folks. Tune in at 11 o'clock for the press conference. Please listen now to the news from Kevin Watler. Big shout out to Kevin and his dad, who's recovering from a little surgery, and his mom and the entire Watler family.
Hello, I'm Kevin Watler, and this is your CMR Daily Buzz. Deputy Governor the Honorable Franz Manderson has been hospitalized following a health scare Wednesday morning. CMR sources say that Mr. Manderson had a 80% blockage in a major artery and was admitted to Doctors Hospital for treatment, where a cardiac catheterization was done. His family has requested some privacy while he recovers. The Cayman Islands Air Show, which was to take place during the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, will now take place on December 3rd and 4th in Grand Cayman and Cayman Brac. The program features a lineup of world-class pilots and aerospace specialists. On December 3rd, it will take place at the 7 Mile Beach, and on December 4th, it will take place in Cayman Brac at the Charles Kirkconnell International Airport. A historic sitting of the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council is now underway in the Cayman Islands, the first time in an overseas territory. The JCPC was invited to sit in the Cayman Islands by the Cayman Islands Judiciary and the Cayman Islands government. The Family Resource Center will be joining countries around the world on Saturday to mark the 11th Annual International Men's Day celebrations in the Cayman Islands. International Men's Day commemorates the positive contributions men make to the world, their families, and communities, while highlighting men's and boys' well-being. The Ministry of Education invites all eligible Caymanians to submit applications for the Education Council Overseas Scholarships for the 2023-2024 academic year. The application period is open until January 31st. Successful applicants will be able to access funding from September 2023 onwards. Now for your CMR weather update. It's brought to you by WG Charters. Sunrise at 6:34. You're going to want to be prepared for some scattered thunderstorms when the temperature's at 85 degrees Fahrenheit and humidity at 78% like the forecast calls for. It will feel like it's in the low 90s. Winds east-northeast at 10 to 20 miles per hour, and the sun sets at 5:46. At nighttime, the temperature falls to the high 70s. Looking forward, there's an increase in the chance of showers for the end of the week and into the weekend. CMR weather updates are brought to you by WG Charters. They offer private boat trips for a great price, so we encourage you to support them. Now for some regional and international news. Guyana has reported 108 murders so far this year, the lowest level in the past decade, as law enforcement authorities Tuesday indicated that serious crimes in the country had declined by 19%. The police say they have seized 68 illegal firearms so far this year, with the United States and Brazil being the countries from where the guns originated. Soaring energy costs drove UK inflation to a fresh high in October, the latest piece of bad news for an economy sliding into recession. The annual rate of inflation rose to 11.1% in October, up from 10.1% in the 12 months to September, the Office for National Statistics said on Wednesday. The sharp increase in living costs was caused by rising gas and electricity prices, despite a government energy price guarantee, which caps energy bills at £2,500 for the typical household. Food price inflation rose to 16.4%. Changing business models and the economy have set off layoffs across the tech industry. Elon Musk halved Twitter's headcount after buying the company. Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, announced it was laying off 11,000 employees, about 13% of its workforce. Lyft, Stripe, Snap, and other tech firms have also laid off workers in recent months. Amazon plans to lay off approximately 10,000 people in corporate and technology jobs in what would be the largest job cuts in the company's history. Democrats in the United States made the same-sex marriage bill one of their first major agenda items in the post-election session, moving quickly to enact it while their party still controls both chambers. The 62-37 vote, which came only days after the midterm elections, in which Democrats retained control of the Senate but were on track to lose the House to Republicans, was a rare and notable last gasp of bipartisanship by a lame duck Congress as lawmakers look toward an era of political gridlock and a divided Washington. That's it for now on the Daily Buzz. Thank you for joining me. Please stay safe and God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Cold Hard Truth on Bobo 89.1 FM. Cayman's #1 talk show is live weekdays from 7:30 a.m. Never miss an episode again. Watch anytime on CMR's Facebook and YouTube channels for the latest show episodes. Don't forget to follow us online on our social media channels and visit CaymanMarlRoad.com for all the latest news and community happenings.